surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. Let hope arise and make the darkness hide. My faith is dead, I need a resurrection somehow. Now I'm lost in your freedom, and this world I'll overcome. My God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Let heaven roar and fire fall. Come shake the ground with the sound of revival. Our God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring alive. He's roaring like a lion.
God's not dead.
Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold to see a revolution somehow. Let love explode and bring the dead to life. A love so bold He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. God's not dead, he's surely alive. He's living on the inside, roaring like a lion. He's roaring like a lion. He's roaring.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
And we are here this morning, 5 a.m. Thursday, November 30th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, 10th month, 13th day by the heavenly calendar. I am your host, Hyung Sean Moon, King of Chaneguk. Zoom it out, zoom it back a little bit, zoom it back, you're too close. There we go, you little frog boy. That's bad. All right, folks, let's go to Tim, the agent elder, for our accurate weather forecast. Tim.
Good morning. You know, it got up to 61 degrees yesterday to Cheongguk.
No wonder it was a little warm.
It was a little warm.
I was freaking out. It was crazy. I was like, oh, wait, Tim said it's going to be 53. Why is it like 80?
61 was the observed high in the Cheongguk area yesterday. But today, this morning, it's down to 22.
Oh, praise the Lord. Praise
So we're
Jesus.
having a lot of fluctuation.
I love it. I love the cold.
The forecast
Oh, my
high
gosh.
today is a 47. We'll have to see what happens. But it'll be partly cloudy, and so we're continuing to have some good weather. It won't really start getting cold until the 7th or 8th of December.
Oh, you got to love the cold, especially sleeping out in the cold. Man, you're getting that toasty warm. Well, it's not toasty warm, as long, sleeping bag. If that sleeping bag can keep you warm, wow, it's so fantastic to be in that sleeping bag. And then in the morning when you come out, it's like, what a phenomenal feel. It makes you feel like, it makes you realize you're alive. It makes you like come in contact with your fresh vitality. I love it, Oh my goodness. So we're going to be doing some bushcraft training this Friday. This Friday is our bushcraft training day for all our advanced students. So we're going to be doing some survival training. Let's get to our Rima this day, and we are in Numbers 28 and 9. Numbers 28 and 9. And we're here at a nice, interesting section in our Patriot Bible. But let's go to our Rima first. And on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs in their first year without blemish, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering, mixed with oil, and its drink offering. This is the burnt offering for every Sabbath, besides the regular burnt offering with its drink offering. Okay, so Sabbath day, 2 lambs in their first year without blemish, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour as a grain offering, mixed with oil with its drink offering. So it's actually very, very simple food offerings. Very simple. Very simple food offerings, okay? And this whole idea of sacrifice, this whole idea of offering sacrifices, what do these things represent for those people, for the Israelites at that time? They not only represent assets, they not only represent sustenance or food, where in which the people can actually eat. After it's offered to God, then they can eat it. The lambs are a huge feast, okay? And then you got the fine flour mixed in with the oil, so that's another feast. It's like basically how you make a type of bannock. Basically a type of bread. Okay, what else? Mixed with oil for each bull. I'm sorry. That's the monthly offerings after that. Okay. So this whole section is talking about the offerings, and this whole idea of offerings and of sacrifice is a very important thing, because think about it. I heard Dr. Peterson talking about the notion of sacrifice from a psychological perspective. And when you look at human development, okay, you have a situation where the child is egocentric to about the age of 3 to 5 years old. Okay, that means egocentric meaning they can only focus on themselves, and they're fully dependent on the mother, especially when they're about a year old. A little less so until 8 years old, and a little, and of course less so once they become teenagers, etc. But always, of course, dependent on the parent to some degree until they become an adult. And this whole idea of sacrifice, okay, he was talking about best friends, okay, and this is a very important concept, because he was bringing up the example that the grandchild of the Queen of England, okay, is going to daycare now apparently, and the grandchild of the Queen of England in the UK daycare. This may be a couple years ago lecture, I'm not sure, but he's in daycare now, and in the UK, you're not allowed to have a best friend because it's gonna hurt other children's feelings. You see? Oh, we wouldn't want that. It's going to hurt other children's feelings. And so you have to treat everybody the same, right? You can't have a best friend. We don't want to be discriminating against others. And he was just saying, from a psychological standpoint, this is preposterous. This is absolutely preposterous. Because from about 5 years old, 5 to 10 years old, children in childhood development, children will select a best friend. And it plays a very important psychological role in terms of survival. Okay, it's the first time the child is leaving its egocentric state and having to switch that around and now have to deal with another person. And that other best friend then becomes more important than it for the first time in its life. It's the first time that a child psychologically has to think of another more than itself, okay? And that's a very important skill, because as it grows, and eventually when it has children, the children will be completely dependent, and it has to be all about basically the children and their survival. And then the parents will come in a very distant second, because the child is utterly dependent on you. You see what I'm saying? So that ability at 5 to 10 years old, from psychological development, to be able to have a best friend is a critical aspect of human development. It's a critical aspect of role playing, so that when you become older, you can then become less egocentric. Think about other people. When you become an adult, you can become less egocentric. If you're in a relationship, if you're married, you have to be less egocentric. When you become married, you realize it's not all about you. You're trying to live with this person with the least amount of residual damage, at the same time trying to build something that is enduring. And when you have children, then you have to be even less egocentric. So this whole process of the unlayering of egocentricity, that is the human experience, and that has been our microevolutionary experience. Not macro, micro, that means within the species, how we've evolved within the species to be able to become more adept at surviving and more skilled at using tools, you name it, okay? The ability to choose a best friend is a critical aspect in psychological development. But now the schools, because they don't want to hurt children's feelings, are not allowing the children to have best friends. You're not allowed to have a best friend. Golly, they know this. See, the globalists and the human behavioral experts, the globalists and the centralists, they spend so much money trying to understand the human brain, okay? neuroscience, human behavior, you name it. So that, because they're fanatic control freaks, they want to be able to control human beings. And since human beings are very intelligent, okay, it's a very hard, being to control, okay? So they want to study as much about it as in neuroscience, in terms of chemicals, in terms of what chemicals and pharmaceuticals they can use to control the brain. You name it, so that they can utilize human beings as essentially a worker class, where in which they can tax them forcibly by the end of a barrel, okay, by coercion. Because left to their own devices, human beings will not be paying, taxes that are used for unseen purposes and that human beings cannot determine the value of. So these globalists and these centralists and these political Satanists are fanatic about this. Why? Because they're fanatic control freaks. They want to control and, quote, socially engineer human populations. So it's no surprise that they're so into these kind of studies and they're so fanatic, and they spend billions and billions of dollars researching this stuff. So they know what, anyways, the point is they know what they're doing. They know they're taking out a key sociological and psychological developmental period in which a child from 5 to 10 years old is playing with a best friend, because you can't like everybody the same. That's preposterous. I mean, from a psychological standpoint, it's preposterous, because we know that psychologically speaking, human beings need the bonding and need to attach themselves emotionally, and of course chemically as well. We know chemically we attach ourselves to people that are in our inner circles and our close relationships. For example, I mean, this is one of the things that, of course, what's Richard Panzer's, Richard's program, Free Teens program. This is one of the aspects that young people learn, okay? And especially young girls learn, that you can't just be casual with sex and a sexual, quote, revolution with the feminist nutbags, and funded by the Ford Foundation and Carnegie Foundation, by the way, to get women to enter into the workplace so that they can be taxed and basically double and triplicate their cash flow. All the while making women more unhappy, because they're saying the value of a woman equals you competing with men in the men's workplace. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And of course, women on average have become less happy because they're not dealing, they have a totally different sociological makeup and a micro evolutionary makeup. The workplace in the business world, lawyers, all this stuff, it's a very cold world, It's not a lot of kindness in that world necessarily, etc. So when women have been brainwashed to define themselves and determine themselves, or to see their value from their work, that your work is the thing that defines you. This is even Camille Paglia says, this is such an unhealthy way for women to view themselves. She's, of course, a woman. But, excuse me, women have become less happy because chemically, women need, they need those bonds of friendship. And of course, women on average will see agreeableness or kindness as the key virtue. Be kind to one another. But in the workplace, that's not necessarily the case. You're not always kind to people. You have to confront people. You have to fire people. You have to, compete. It's like an army, because you have to compete with other competitors in the marketplace. So really, business and the workplace is like an army. So it's like joining the military in some aspect. And of course, women on average, when given the choice, join the military like 0.01% compared to the 99% that are men. Right? It's like doing hard labor. So of course, women will tend not to do that unless they're sociologically engineered to believe that's the only place where they can find value. And of course, you've seen the huge demonization of women who choose, I'm going to be a mom, I'm going to be a stay-home mom, I'm going to home builder, etc. There's a demonization process, so they've been able to engineer women and sort of create a generation of women who believe those feminist studies professors. You know, these kind of man-hating. At the same time, they envy men. At the same time, they want to compete with men in all things and pretend there's no biological differences and or no physical differences. Of course, that never turns out good for women, etc. But you have a situation wherein which they're not able to be happy because you have a chemical difference. Okay, when you bond with somebody sexually, the whole sexual liberation issue. Oh, you know, men sleep around, so women you sleep around too. That's devastating for women, because evolutionarily, they've not evolved that way. I'm not talking about macroevolution from like evolving from chimps or apes. We all know that's preposterous, that's ridiculous. But microevolution within the species, okay, within the species of human beings, we do evolve into different, you know, our skin changes depending if we move north or south. Anyways, microevolutionarily speaking, women have not evolved that way because they have to be the child bearers for the next generation. They have to be protected. They are fully dependent on their husband because they have to do the menstruation cycle per every month. They're physically weaker. They're more tired, etc. During those times, they're they're more open to predation because the blood that's being emitted from the body smells, and predators can smell prey, etc. So these are factors which then play into the sociological development of women who need to be protected, and the males have to not only hunt, but they also have to create a protection around for the women and the children, and then of course the children are dependent on the parents. And he was even talking about the hip size of women and how the hip size of women is at the maximum in terms of physiology to be able to actually have the woman run while at the same time have babies. But that human babies are actually born at a very premature state compared to different animals in his view, because the hips are not as big. They're not really huge to let the baby pass through the uterus. Okay? So actually there's a lot of compression to the baby skull, and the skull actually has to be malleable and of course be able to bend to the intense pressure that's created from having relatively small hips compared to other animals like other larger animals or mammals, etc. So you're talking about a situation where in which if a woman behaves like a man, trying to just have sex with a whole slew of partners, she becomes chemically and of course mentally devastated. Okay, every time a woman bonds with somebody, especially intimately, there's the hormone oxytocin that's released, which actually is a bonding hormone, and it's designed so that you're bonding with your peer partner, and then that allows you to attach yourself to that person more. But then the point is that if a woman is doing that to many different men, then she gets on a chemically addicted to failure, essentially. Chemically addicted to failure, and then becomes a microevolutionary hazard for the progeny, for her children. You see what I'm saying? So this all has a realm in biology and genetics, which women are not aware of. And of course, thank goodness for the internet, because women and the feminist movement is exposed. Women are not the same as men. Women value things totally different from men, even though they're brainwashed to try to compete with men at every level. And then if they can't compete, quote, equally, then they use coercion and force, or they're told that's fine, use coercion and force by the government to make things more, quote, equitable. Okay? So that's a false reality. And a false scenario that has been painted out before, unfortunately, before unwitting ladies, so to speak. So human beings are we do have not only psychological, we not only have emotional, we don't have spiritual, we also have chemical impacts on our physiology. Chemical, and the chemical impacts on our physiology are absolutely tremendously powerful. Okay? For example, the dopamine hits that you get with certain activities or certain things then makes you addicted to those things. Okay? So the chemical nature of the human body and the human physiology is an absolutely important thing. Or let's say a critical thing. But that's why these social engineers are so into developing all these new drugs through psychiatry and all this kind of things, and these crazy, very dangerous psychotropic medicines which can actually control people and make them suicidal, homicidal, etc. You name it. I mean, that's what the whole MK Ultra CIA operation was all about. Being able to program soldiers with the trope of PTSD, but basically being able to program them to make them lash out and become homicidal and violent. And then use them as essentially false flag instruments to then be able to destabilize society and or make a justification case, that is, for the elite class, for the oligarchical class, for a centralized bureaucracy. Okay, basically, in other words, to scare the population, because you need to destabilize the population to be able to scare it and create chaos. He was going into this whole thing that our primitive mind, so to speak, has a general fear of chaos, and that in the organization of chaos we find comfort and psychological ease. We find psychological comfort in the organization of chaos, right? And there was a time where when we moved beyond the fireplace, so to speak, and the fireplace sort of is that comforting, warm thing in the night. And in the night, there are things that are scary. There are things that can kill you. There are things that can eat you, right? He was talking about like a specific type of cat or saber-toothed tiger that had a specifically designed tooth that would kill humans. It would bite you on the face, and then the specifically designed tooth on the top had a one tooth that would actually cut your spinal cord and sever your spinal cord. So it was looked like it was almost microevolutionarily evolved to be able to eat primates or things that look like, that have a big head, stand upright, and to attack the spinal cord, essentially. Okay? But you have this whole situation where we developed out from, where we moved out beyond the fireplace. That's why women, for example, see men who take risks as attractive, not necessarily men who are agreeable like them, like women that act like women, because it is from a primitive mind perspective. It shows that man is moving on beyond the fireplace into the unknown, organizing chaos organizing or putting order into chaos, and then bringing back the first fruits of that organization of chaos, which then adds to resources or has a higher percentile of resources, which then the women can depend on, because when they're raising children, they are dependent on resources. So from a microevolutionary standpoint, that's why women are attracted to men who are always pushing forward, and then they have a drive, and they know what they want to do, and they want this and this and this, and they have a dream, and you can't yet formalize or see that dream yet, but they're pushing forward towards it, and et cetera, et cetera. And so they're keeping life exciting in that sense, and they're pushing and pushing, pushing. And so women are attracted to those kind of men sexually, right? Because they want to mate and reproduce and have that gene set, which will be able to have the highest percentage of bringing back resources when they have to rely on those resources. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So this, and it was interesting. He was discussing even the dragon in, the dragon essentially is an amalgam of all predators, right? The dragon is an amalgam of all things that can kill us as human beings. It's an amalgam of a lion, a tiger, a serpent, a large reptile, a shark, whatever it is. Something that comes out from the darkness, which is awe-inspiring, which evokes fear in us because it evokes the fear of mortality. That means death. And by the fear of mortality, then we have to use our imagination to then prepare for death or avoid death, at least in the interim, in the temporary, avoid death. And by avoiding death, we then have to think and you develop tools and defend ourselves and defend our community, defend our civilization, etc. And then that's how technology and that's how the advent of more tool usage happens, etc. And so this dragon figure, which is really an amalgam of an alligator and sharks and big teeth and bears and whatever can kill you, okay, whatever can kill you. This consciousness or this awareness of our own mortality then allows us to separate ourselves from different animals, of course, because most animals are not aware of their mortality, that they can die. They just simply act out these instinctual behaviors, and if they die, they die. And they're not necessarily shocked by that and or it doesn't bother them, okay? Human beings have awareness and consciousness of our mortality. Isn't that interesting? Okay, we have awareness of our mortality, which then stimulates a fear response, which then stimulates an imaginative response in our mind, which then looks into the future so that we don't die. You know what I'm saying? Or we try to prepare in our mind different avenues of success so we don't die. And we can use our imagination. We can actually think and imagine different scenarios, that will allow our imaginative my imaginative I, to die instead of me actually dying to learn the consequences of death. You see what I'm saying? Isn't that interesting? Interesting. You know what I'm saying? So sort of moving beyond the fireplace, and that's why women are sexually attracted to men who have that aspect, no matter how much feminist social engineering happens on them. Women still are biologically and microevolutionarily women. They're not men. They have different chemicals that they're addicted to. They have different physiological responses. They have different likes, not because of their choice and not because of social conditioning. That's like a minute portion. Because of the way human beings have microevolutionarily evolved in our species to become more successful and flourish more with higher level tool sets, etc. And God made us that way. Christians have no problem with microevolution. That means within a species, which is scientific, a species, there is evolution. Okay? People can evolve to their landscape, to their different, desert environment, winter environment, cold environment, hot environment. You evolve your tendencies and or chemical responses to those environments. That's fine. That's no problem. The problem is, of course, macroevolution, which is a cult, which is a religion, which is an atheistic religion, which, of course, all the main political Satanist thinkers in the 20th century, like Marx, Hegel, Feuerbach, dictators, Stalin, etc., they're all atheists. They all believe in evolution. And of course, unfortunately, once you believe in evolution, microevolution, you have to believe in eugenics. And you have to believe that certain humans are actually better than other humans. So then you depart from the biblical context where all human beings are made in the image of God. Right? Because now there are different types of primates which you could then rate. And then once you get into that, you become racist. You become a racist. So of course, there's no evidence for macroevolution or a huge jumps in those ontological jumps in the fossil records are not shown to have transitional fossils whatsoever. And the whole Lucy or the missing link is just a theorem. It's never been, that quote, missing link has never been found. And the scientists are just desperately continuing to grasp for it, even though they can't produce it. Right? Anyways, the point is, microevolutionarily speaking, that's no contradiction to the biblical perspective, biblical context, or spiritual context. But we develop microevolutionarily in different ways. That's why there's sexual differentiation. That's why there's job differentiation when you look at tribal societies across all civilizations. Men and women, consistently, men are the hunter-gatherers, women are the providers for the home. And they're microevolutionarily evolved in those ways to be more successful at that. Why? Because that success then dictates the flourishing of the next generation of the species. Okay? So this whole idea of sacrifice is tied in with best friendhood, you know? This whole idea of sacrificing things, this is tied into egocentricity, the opposite of egocentricity, which we experience from a developmental perspective at about 5 to 10 years old when we have our first best friend. Isn't that interesting? And then when you have our family, and if you're in a nuclear and extended family situation, well, you learn egocentricity, to remove egocentricity from your life at a faster rate, right? And because you learn to remove egocentricity from your life, you're able to be more empathetic. You're able to be more helpful to other people, right? And so this idea of sacrifice too is learning at the highest level that to the transcendent, to God, not to God in our community, that we have a sacrificial responsibility. We have a responsibility to sacrifice in some way, to stand up for one another, to stand up for the God that binds us. We have a responsibility to go beyond egocentricity and to then love God and love our neighbor. This is like a class in psychology this morning, isn't it? All right, folks, we'll take a short break. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Joby Gorgas with Magnum Research. I'm here to tell you a little bit about our new L5 and 44 mag. This is our 5-inch model, lightweight model. It's got an aluminum grip frame, shaving down the weight so that we can get it under 50 ounces so that it's New York legal. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to properly hold the L5 for function. When shooting a Desert Eagle, you want to make sure that your dominant arm is locked out, pushing back into the back of the grip. Your secondary hand is holding around the front of the grip to keep the muzzle flip down. This gives you a good firm hold for proper cycling. We got to remember that the Desert Eagle is a gas-operated rotating bolt semi-automatic pistol, not unlike an AR system. I also want to talk to you about the stance for shooting the Desert Eagle. When shooting the Desert Eagle, you need a good firm base. So you want to step into your direction, get that arm locked, that support hand on, and lean forward into it so that you can handle that recoil.
Magnum Research. And Auto Ordnance, the Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And we are back. Welcome back to King Support, Thursday, November 30, 2017. This beautiful, refreshing, crisp, and cold day. 22 degrees, and it is 5:41. Thank you for joining us this morning. We are always so lively in the morning, Tim. It's always so lively in the Kings Report studio at 5 in the morning. We have a very awesome, incredible, high-level special guest today. So everybody hopefully is going to be very excited to meet them and see us having a wonderful time. Our guest was joining us from the West Coast, so of course it's very hard for them to get up in super early and to join us live. So it was taped yesterday, but we have a wonderful, wonderful, powerful interview coming up on the third hour. But first, now let's go to our headline news, and let's go to one important story about the youngest world leader. Tim, let's go to that.
So the world's youngest leader vows to kick pedophiles out of politics.
Let's pull up that article so everybody can see it while we're covering it, because it's such an important. Thank you, Pierre, by the way, for sending us that beautiful article. Tim,
Maybe difficult to, you don't have it, do you? Yeah, maybe difficult to find.
what is the title of that, real quick, so they can find it?
I don't think they can find it. I looked for it and I couldn't find it.
You couldn't find it?
Yeah, I just found it on Pierre's link.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, let me go ahead and read it.
Okay.
Discussed by EU Parliament plans to reduce the age of consent in Europe from 16 to 13. Brave Sebastian Kurz has vowed to launch a high-level European pedophile ring investigation with severe punishments for anyone in position of power revealed to be abusing children.
Sebastian Kurz. Sebastian Kurz. Let's get some pictures of Sebastian Kurz. Good-looking young man, 31-year-old Prime Minister of Austria. 31-year-old, handsome Prime Minister of Austria. Incredible.
Sebastian Kurz, the world's youngest elected leader, studied secret societies and the real nature of the world using YouTube and company and conspiracy forums, and he plans to put his knowledge to good use.
Isn't that amazing? Make Austria great again. There's a young man. Look at that. 31-year-old Prime Minister.
Do you have the article? Is that the
Yes,
article?
we do. There it is.
Yeah.
We have it.
Anyone caught and engaged in this diabolical practice will be dealt with in the severest way, with especially harsh punishments for those found to be abusing children, abusing positions of power and influence, the Austrian leader said.
Wow.
Responding to claims that many top politicians and pedophiles are pedophiles, Kurz said this may be so, and acknowledged that he has heard that a kind of mafia exists in which elite pedophiles
Wow.
protect each other while being protected and exploited in turn by their own masters.
You see, he's bringing the word mafia because he knows that the Italian Vatican is involved in it. And of course, Cardinal Pell, which is the second to the Pope, the deputy Pope, okay, number 2 man in the freaking Vatican, is now proven, and he's now being held in court in Australia for trafficking over 100 boys. These people are totally a pedophile network. And of course, now they have their own Jesuit communist pope in there that is ruling the biggest church in the world, almost 1 billion, I'm sorry, total Christianity numbers, including Protestantism, is 1 billion, but massive, hundreds and hundreds of millions of poor people in the Catholic Church, being led by literally a pedophile cult. But of course, not only that, you can see the whole structure of political Satanism worldwide, and all the leadership is collapsing, crumbling because of all the pedophile schemes and scandals which are now breaking out all across the world. There's a total reorientation of the world that's happening right now, and it started happening right after 9/23, after True Mother was instated. Do you understand? This is incredible. It's like a total flip of the actual power in the world. The actual power structure in the world is completely becoming exposed. This is unbelievable. I mean, just look at the top news on DrudgeReport.com. It's not only Matt Lauer. It's not only this guy from WAPO. It's like everybody in the elite class is involved in sexual deviance. Everybody, it's not even a big surprise. I mean, they're primarily atheists, which of course think we're rocks and advanced primates floating on a freaking rock in outer space. I mean, of course you're not going to have any moral fortitude or any moral ethics if you think we're freaking apes flying around on a rock having no meaning, just doing whatever the hell we want. If there's no greater context of consciousness, which of course now science is starting to prove that there is a consciousness that developed the finely tuned universe. This is what's so exciting. It's exciting. It's exciting. Science is now turning. The atheists were so lustful of science because they felt that it was their final escape from God. And through science, they would be finally able to kill God. This hatred and this wicked, vehement, narcissistic, egoistic desire to destroy their own fundamental genesis, this suicidal lust to kill God, then now turns back on them the more they research things like cosmology, thermodynamics, things like understanding the universe, things like the double slit experiment, which prove that perception changes reality. Oh my goodness, which then puts them into a total conundrum, because then you don't have endless consciousness through human beings, which then finally there has to be a larger conscious mind that's viewing the last human conscious mind, etc., which then shows us that our whole reality is being held together by a conscious mind. And you have even former atheists like Michio Kaku out of SUNY University, New York, CUNY, New York, that one of the top physicists in the world. I mean, he's always on the Discovery Channel. You know, he's the Asian guy, the Asian American guy with the Einstein haircut, and he's that dude. I mean, even now he has to admit that there's an intelligent consciousness that holds together the universe. So these scientists, in their little lust to want to kill God, and their suicidal, sort of beta, anti-survival, perspective, now are hit with the own thing that they thought would bring their own freedom from God, is now coming back to hit them straight in the face, confirming the reality of the mathematics and the architecture of the universe, the mathematics of the fine-tuning of the mass of the electron, the mass of the proton, you name it. There's like a whole list of constant conditions. Everything from the weak force, the gravitational pull, etc. All these things, which then have to be exactly fine-tuned. And if you mess with even one of them, you completely collapse the universe. I mean, this is what's so amazing and exciting for Christians about science now, is that science, for about a period of 50 years, they were able to use science to just rail and mock Christians. But now it's turned around. It's like come around to smack them right in the jaw and a counterpunch. It's so fantastic. But you see, the whole structure of the elite control over the world, the oligarchical super elite class, is coming down. And of course, their minions, for example, the ones who are in media, etc., those the sort of minions that have sold out to the promise of power and resources and coercion and force, so that they can rule as kings. They can be the sort of the relative kings of the world when they talk about the proletariat and the workers' class, when they really hate and have contempt for the working class, and they only want to exploit it through coercion and taxation. So that they, like Matt Lauer, can sit up there preaching and sit up there lecturing the nation and getting paid $20 million by NBC to be a propaganda military agent of disinformation and brainwashing cult level propaganda. And that whole structure is collapsing. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. You literally see the total change in the world leadership. You know, Ivanka was just in India the other day, and her thing was, make India great again. It's MEGA. So it's amazing, because now Trump is spreading the MAGA revolution to other countries. So when he goes to another country, he goes, you know, make Poland great again, or make India great again, or make Korea great again, or make Japan. You see what I'm saying? He's spreading a revolution of sovereignty, which of course is in concert with bringing down the current establishment, which are run by pedophile cults, which are run by sexual deviants, which are run by, their minions in media and Matt Lauer and all. Just look at these perverted evolutionists, these perverted atheists, these perverted, sycophantic, narcissistic, egoistic, military disinformation agents. What the hell? Well, look at that picture. That's such a wacky picture. Look at, he's got like a sex choker collar or something. What the hell is wrong with that fool? Nobody likes you, little piece of trash disinformation military agent. Nobody likes you, you agent for federal power, selling yourself out, thinking that you're going to be part of some kind of club, thinking you're going to be valuable and meaningful, selling yourself out to literally Satan and pedophile orgies to blackmail you. I mean, these pathetic grubs of human beings thinking that they're going to be mighty and high by allying with the worst evil of the species to then try to centralize power, then use the power of the state to use coercion to steal from people, and all the meanwhile trying to talk about they're Marxists, trying to talk about they protect the proletariat class, when they have utter contempt for the normal person and think they're elitists in their little champagne Hollywood parties, laughing at the normal blue-collar worker. This is just ridiculous. These pieces of trash now, and then of course blame all blue-collar, all men. It's all men's fault that, remember this stupid Hollywood actress that was coming out and saying, you know, she was doing the right thing coming out against Harvey Weinstein, but then she started saying it's all men. What the hell are you talking about? It's all men. No, there are different types of men, R-type, K-type men. And men who are honorable and chivalrous don't have to do that kind of crap. They don't have to prey on them like these sexual deviants in politics and media that are using their positions as disinformation agents in a cult of a suicide cult, in terms of microevolutionarily speaking, across the span of human history. It's literally it's a suicide cult that's obsessed with death and power and force, coercion. Whereas the able type sheepdog Christians are not obsessed with power. They're obsessed with doing the right thing. And they're not, and the people in the liberty side and the sovereignty side know that we're not, especially if they're Christian, they know that we're not perfect. They know that we're sinners before God. They know that God is the one who redeems us. And it's not because of our goodness that God redeems us. It's not because we earned it that God. It's not because we have earned the blessing of His grace, which is totally undeserved. We don't deserve it. We are wretched sinners. We are wretched, selfish, egoistic beings. We don't deserve to be loved by the Almighty God. We don't deserve to be loved and to be saved with Almighty by Almighty. We don't deserve it. But by His sacrifice, oh, there it is again. Oh, see that? sacrifice, right? The non-egocentricity, which then we can in the person of Jesus Christ see put up to its penultimate level, where he gives his life for the salvation of others. He gives his life willingly so that others may be saved from eternal damnation. In this incredible, altruistic, benevolent, compassionate, sacrificial offering of his life for you. Talk about no egocentricity. Holy Shemitah. Okay? But look, the establishment is totally collapsing. You can see the total power structure is falling. There is now a reorganization of the entire world. And we're living in it. It's incredible to see this happening. It's incredible. This is like once in a millennium. We are in the end of time. Look at this. We're in the end of days. Satan's kingdoms are coming down. They're coming down, 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 down. Satan's kingdoms are coming down. This is incredible. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you get back to the article, please? Okay. of Kurz, the young man.
Just to clarify, Sebastian Kurz is not quite the Chancellor of Austria, although his party was the most successful in the previous election, and he's been asked to form a government, and he expects to form a government by Christmas. So he has to succeed in doing that. So they're in a kind of a transition, but he's expected to become the prime minister, or actually in Austria it's called Chancellor, by Christmas. Yes.
He's aware of all these different conspiracies and secret societies, how they operate through sex and using sex as blackmail.
So he said, this behavior stops now. My colleagues and I have agreed we cannot go to our graves without eradicating this evil from society. This is our duty.
This is amazing. As more national leaders rise to do this, it's going to be harder to kill them all.
31-year-old Sebastian Kurz became the youngest world leader when he was elected by an Austrian public tired of the corrupt political class lying, cheating, and stealing and raping their young. A series of child sex scandals have rocked Austrian political circles, while the nation's mainstream media, owned by a corrupt oligarchy, has remained silent when it comes to...
That's exactly what is America. America is under the same military control of the centralists and the political Satanist globalists. We are under the globalist control. We are under the UN, under the George Soros. We're under the Rothschild groups. We're in the same system that Austria has. We have a weaponized media that is constantly brainwashing our population. Go ahead.
Kurtz grew up in the digital age, and he has educated himself using forums and YouTube videos regarding the power structures that control the world. The world's youngest elected leader is determined to dismantle the pedophile network that has infiltrated European politics.
Wow, my gosh, that's incredible. That means you have to get rid of the whole EU.
I grew up in a very conservative family, Kurtz said, where children never say no to their parents, where children are taught the value of hard work, and where children are taught not to shy away from taking on responsibility, taking on impossible-looking tasks.
See, he comes from this is why they hate everything that's good. They hate everything that creates success. They are the ultimate suicide death cult. Temporary pleasure. Kill everybody so I can have a temporary power fit. They're the ultimate suicidal, psychopathic maniacs. Literally looking for the dopamine hit of temporary now. I want only a now. They're the literal microevolutionary product of suicidal cults. Okay? It would be suicide for our species to follow that. Because we would literally be searching only for temporary power and throw out the entire future generations. Look at this. Because why? Just as Kurtz is mentioning, families who are conservative, families who are Christian, understand and teach their children the order of God and the order of that God has given us. Man in Christ, God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, woman over children. Children in mom, mom in dad, dad in Christ, Christ in God. You see? There's an ordering. There's an order. We have been designed in a certain way. And of course, we microevolutionary developed in that way as well. Across civilization, across time. All civilizations, the same way. Interesting. Oh, Paul Joseph Watson has a nice new video on art. Guys, pull up that video by Paul Joseph Watson on art. Wonderful, where he's showing how pathetic the modern art world has become. It's so pathetic. And there's this war on beauty because beauty is beautiful and the globalists are ugly and they're selfish and vampiric and wicked and decrepit and nasty and narcissistic. They're ugly. They're so ugly spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. They're suicidal. They're a death cult of ugliness. And so they hate everything that's beautiful. They wage war on beauty. Let's go take a look at this clip.
Da Vinci painting just sold for $450 million. But what you may have missed at the same auction was the sale of this monstrosity. How much do you reckon? Did somebody buy it for $20 for a laugh? No. $46 million. $46 million for something that resembles what would probably happen if a 2-year-old toddler was left on its own with a bottle of ketchup. Listen to the absolute tripe they spout to describe it.
Red is the colour of wine, but also of blood, and these canvases encompass both the sensual pleasure and violent debauchery associated with the god. This contrast is echoed in the painting's combination of euphoric loops that soar upwards and vermilion floods of paint that ooze and cascade down the canvas. The unfurling gestures of these paintings were made like Henry Matisse's works in old age, with a brush affixed to the end of a pole, which lends them their vitality and scale.
What a load of bollocks. That gibberish is another example of obscurantism, a rhetorical device modern art snobs use to disguise the fact that their art is completely meaningless. It's just a fancy way of confusing people so their initial discernment is temporarily suspended, making them afraid of criticizing such art for fear of appearing uncultured or ignorant. In reality, their first instinct is totally correct. The vast majority of modern art is talentless trash. Sometimes it's literally trash. And the entire industry is a price-fixing scam, where galleries and auction houses in coordination with elitist collectors keep values grossly inflated. Collectors also gift crappy inflated modern art as a charitable donation so they can avoid paying tax. Others buy shitty modern art simply as a way to launder money. It took Da Vinci 3 years to paint The Last Supper. The bloke who did this just stuck a brush to a pole, dipped it in paint, went like that a few times, and hey presto, that'll be $46 million, please. He spent just as much time thinking up a name for it, and after I'm sure what was an intense period of internal debate, he eventually settled on Untitled. Oh, but wait, it's part of a series? Because it really looks like a lot of forethought went into the other one, given that it looks almost identical. The Guardian called the artist Cy Twombly, quote, the most intelligent and emotionally eloquent artist of our age. Yeah, our age is shit, isn't it? Here's another spectacular work from the most intelligent and emotionally eloquent artist of our age. What endless list of titles did Twombly agonize over before naming this one? Oh, it's called Untitled. Again. I call it testing a biro pen. What makes this all the more ironic is that Twombly was obsessed with Leonardo da Vinci, which is like the schlub who designed this being obsessed with Isambard Kingdom Brunel. The age of Trump derangement syndrome has only intensified the belief that anything can be considered art if it serves to amplify some demented far-left political cliche.
The carpet, if you look very closely, you see? It's made up of thousands and thousands of African babies.
Oh, it's like he's literally walking on African babies.
Yes.
And like, so he's like the West, and the African babies are like Africa.
That's a very good interpretation.
Remember the Black Lives Matter supporting performance artist who twerked her giant fat ass once for every time an African American was killed by a cop? Yeah, that was my favourite. Now a transgender artist has collected 200 gallons of urine to protest Trump. Yeah, stockpiling piss isn't art. It's a mental illness. This artist embarked on a, quote, observation of zeitgeist through the so-called thanato-political dimension of contemporary biopolitical practices. What actually happened is that she breastfed her own dogs, which is closer to animal abuse than it is art, but who am I to judge? This genius didn't even bother slapping a few splodges of paint on a canvas and instead just literally wrote the words, "Please imagine a boring abstract painting." But why even bother writing anything when you can just glue cardboard boxes to the wall? Having already blown $500,000 on a blue ring, Calgary wasn't finished yet.
Artists always say their aim is to move people with their work. Well, a massive new sculpture in Calgary is definitely moving a lot of people there into writing hate mail.
Just off the Trans-Canada Highway stands Calgary's latest public art installation, Beaufort Towers. The project cost $500,000.
The Museum of Modern Art in New York, MoMA, remains as cancerous as ever. This piece of art celebrates, quote, downtown counterculture. Exactly what's artistic or counterculture about some pouting soy boy flouncing around in front of a camera, your guess is as good as mine.
I just feel like even like the reductive nature of this, like his color scheme is so fascinating.
Yeah, his color scheme is so fascinating, he's literally used one colour. Respondents to the Twitter thread reacted with their own pieces, all of which were actually more intricate than the dross hanging in the gallery.
Share photos on Instagram showing how you interpret the hijab as part of the modern wardrobe.
Yeah, the hijab is so modern that women all over the Middle East who refuse to wear it or simply let it slip are subjected to abuse, beatings, imprisonment and death. So modern, so progressive. Next up at MoMA, share photos showing how you interpret the chastity belt as part of a modern wardrobe, but given how insufferably boring and pointless their exhibitions are, it was thoughtful of MoMA to provide this jigsaw puzzle for visitors. Oh no, that's a piece of art too. No, an unfinished jigsaw puzzle is not art. It's an unfinished jigsaw puzzle.
If people say it's art, it's art.
Well, I think that's absolute rubbish.
So
you could say anything is art. You just have.
You could say everything is art. But the point is that...
Is my shoe art?
If you say it is, I have to then judge it on those terms.
Well, I think that's a totally ridiculous argument.
Well,
I never heard anything more ludicrous in my life.
Well, it's sort of...
Replica sports shirts. They're not art. They're replica sports shirts. Just because you moved them to a different location and devoted a poncy, pretentious monologue to them doesn't suddenly make them art. They're still replica sports shirts. Just like sticking a piece of plastic shit through a toilet roll holder doesn't change the fact that it's just a piece of plastic shit stuck through a toilet roll holder. Art that has to be in a gallery to be art isn't art. Some kids left a pineapple in the middle of an exhibition and people mistook it for art, thinking that everything is subjective, that there are no objective standards of beauty, and that anything can be considered art isn't a refined opinion. It's dumb.
It's ugly people trying to hate beauty. Ugly, wicked, evil, narcissistic, self-hating, self-abhorring people who hate anything that leans toward the standard of beauty.
People have marginalized the pursuit of beauty. There's been a huge cultural shift.
Reclaiming beauty, why beauty matters.
Beauty from the place in human
Okay, stop this. Why does beauty matter? Beauty is an abstraction from proportionality, which you can see in nature. Okay? Proportionality exists in nature. When we see a landscape that's beautiful, when we see color schemes that are beautiful, when we see the rainbow, when we see a sunset, a sunrise, there is beauty there because there's a proportionality. There's mathematics. There are different things that are adding to the composition of that landscape. For example, trees cannot just continue to grow. There's a level in which a tree will stop growing. There's a maximum limit. For example, when you see a tree growing up and you see the canopy start folding down, it's because the tree is getting so massive the canopy is starting to fold. And as it folds down, it's not able to grow anymore. It cannot grow infinitely. And that's why there's something as proportionality. So when we see there's something that's unproportional, we see, whoa, that's liable to die, you see? From microevolutionary standpoint, we see that and see, oh crap, that's likely to die because it's not proportional. Things that are proportional are more vibrant, more beautiful, more youthful, more vitality, more higher chance of survival. Right? And so naturally we're attracted to those things because that's been our struggle to survive against lions, bears, and tigers, etc. from a microevolutionary standpoint. Okay? So the search for beauty is an abstraction of proportionality, and that's what the whole golden mean is about. That's what the artistic golden mean, that is. That is what the Fibonacci sequence is about. That is the whole golden ratio is all about. 1 to 1 point, what is it, 1 to 1.6? Look up golden mean, golden ratio. I think it's 1 to 1.6. Anyway, something right around there. It's right around there. It's right around that area. But that basically means, when you draw a face, for example, The eyes have to be 1 to 1.6 ratio. The distance from the head of your top of your head to the middle of your eyes, to the middle of your face where your eyes are set, should be 1 to 1.6. The difference 1.61. Hey, look, my memory's here. 1 to 1.6. Okay. The ratio from in the triangle that's created from your nose to your chin, the lines that created from your smile, should be about 1 to 1.6. The relative distance between your chin to the different lip proportionality should be 1 to 1.6. The relative distance between the arm to the forearm to the hand to the nodes in the hand is 1 to 1.6. The relative proportionality between the body of the upper torso to the lower torso is about 1 to 1.6. I mean, that's the reason why we see beauty, because it represents success over death, and it represents success over mortality, a higher percentage chance of survival, and increasing and passing down a healthy gene set. So when we see things that break that proportionality out of that objective standard of survival and beauty, we then are disgusted by that, or we have a revulsion against that, because if that was the standard, then our species would die or have a higher likelihood of death. If a woman's hips are too big, that doesn't look beautiful, because they're less likely to be able to run if a predator is attacking. And so their chance of death is higher from a microevolutionary perspective, you see? So when a woman's hip is proportional so that she can still be fit, still be able to actively run away from a predator, but at the same time being healthy and having to have babies, right? Then we see that as beautiful. Right? When a man is able to be strong, that has a V and has large shoulders and a smaller waist, that signifies the ability to run and to be able to hunt and to be able to climb trees and be able to take risks and be able to catch larger predators, etc. That's associated. Muscle mass and masculinity, and those things are associated with survival and the continuation of the gene set and the species. Hello. Which is the reason why we see that as beautiful. We don't see an obese Jabba the Hutt man sitting on his couch drooling with canola oil flowing out of his mouth, out of his last bacon bits that he was munching on, as beautiful. Unshaven, unclean, with a quadruple chin. Any idiot in the art cult who says, oh, that's so beautiful. Look at the reductionist colors that's using. That color scheme is so stimulating. There's only one damn color. Look at that sophisticated pattern of what were they? What was like words they were using? Look at the sophisticated pattern of what was that language they were using? It was just making up Greek words to sound intelligent. Okay, I'm just so phony, it's so fake, and people are so sick of it. And thank God for the internet, where we can make fun of idiots like this so that they cannot rob people of $46 million and putting a little brush on a pole and dipping it in ketchup and spreading it around in circles. This is how stupid some of these rich people are. They're just pressure cooked into a cult of acceptance, and I don't want to seem uncultured. I better pay more money for that useless painting made by a freaking 5-year-old. My 5-year-old can do that. I mean, I don't have a 5-year-old, no, but I'm saying a 5-year-old child can do that. This is a state in which this brainwashing has taken over. All objective reality has been thrown out, and we live in this ridiculous cult of postmodern not reductionism, it is reductionism as well. Postmodern reductionistic relativism. Are you kidding me? Your shoe can be a piece of art? Your shoe is fine art like Leonardo da Vinci, who took 3 freaking years to paint the Last Supper. Give me a break. That doesn't mean that all modern art is bad. Like, I have seen some modern art that's quite creative and cool, and it is stimulating. But are you kidding me? A freaking paintbrush on a pole, doing circles on it, and charging $47 million at a freaking Christie's auction? Give me a break, people! You are mentally deranged. You are ill. You are sick. You are sick. Even modern abstract, like I saw some beautiful abstract paintings in Korea, where they had, it's very simple. They just like a beautiful mountain, like that. and then there's a little hut like on there, like symbolizing a temple. That I like. That is cute. That's really cute. On a white canvas, had this beautiful little mountain that was just like one mountain there. I like that. Okay, that actually took some skill because there was a lot of gradation in the colors of it. That took some skill because I know Asian calligraphy and I know Asian art. I'm not an master in Asian art, but I know how to do calligraphy, and I learned Asian art a little bit. So I can see the value of something like that. But I mean, are you kidding me? That's those stupid swirl paintings saying that he's one of the most brilliant modern artists of our age? That shows you how pathetic we are. It shows you how pathetic the art world is. It is a cult. It is a religion cult. Meanwhile, they make fun of religion saying that it's unnecessary, and they themselves are a religious cult. And if you say anything about them, you're uncultured and you're uneducated and you're just you have toxic masculinity because you can't appreciate the reductionist color scheme of this brilliant artist which draws circles with a biro pen. Give me a break. This is so ridiculous. We'll be right back after this. Oh my gosh. 말도 안 되지 그거.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary. Come set your rule and reign in our hearts again. Increase in us, we pray. Unveil why we're made. Come set our hearts ablaze with hope, like wildfire in our very souls. Holy Spirit, come invade us now. We are your church. We need your power in us. We seek your kingdom first. We hunger and we thirst. Refuse to waste our lives. For you're our joy and prize. To see the captive hearts released, the hurt, the sick, the poor at peace. We lay down our lives for heaven's cause. We are your church. We pray, revive this earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Unleash your kingdom's power, reaching the near and far. No force of hell can stop your beauty changing hearts. You made us for much more than this. Awake the kingdom seed in us. Fill us with the strength and love of Christ. We are your church. We are the home on earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the Let the darkness clear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Come set your rule and reign in our hearts again. Increase in us, we pray. Unveil why we're made. Come set our hearts ablaze with hope, like wildfire in our very souls. Holy Spirit, come invade us now. We are your church. We need your power in us. And we seek your kingdom first. We hunger and we thirst. Refuse to waste our lives. For you're our joy and prize. To see the captive hearts released. The hurt, the sick, the poor at peace. We lay down our lives for heaven's cause. We are your church. We pray, revive this earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness fear. Show your mighty hand. Heal our streets and land. Set your church on fire. Win this nation back. Change the atmosphere. Build your kingdom here. We pray. Unleash your kingdom's power, reaching the near and far. No force of hell can stop your beauty changing hearts. You made us for much more than this. Awake the kingdom seed in us. Fill us with the strength and love of Christ. We are your church. We are the home on earth. Build your kingdom here. Let the darkness clear.
Hey, we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report, Thursday, November 30th, 2017, 8th year of Chung Chungi, 10th month, 13th day by the heavenly calendar. I am your host, Hyung Sean Moon, the second king of Cheniguk, and I will remove myself from this studio for the headline news so I don't rant while Tim Elder is going over the headline news. Tim, so we can actually hear what the news is. Go ahead, Tim.
So the story that broke about 24 hours ago, Matt Lauer being fired by NBC for inappropriate sexual behavior, is still developing today. NBC says current management, in quotes, was not previously aware. That's what they say. He gave a coworker sex toy, flash penis to the employee, and flashback used show to mock workplace harassment. The complaints against Lauer previously fell on deaf ears. And new light is being cast on the decision to smother explosive Weinstein piece because NBC had it before it came out, but they chose not to air it, And now Matt Lauer, of course, had basically he has had absolute power within NBC News.
Whoa!
And so he
$20 million a year.
That's his salary, $20 million a year.
What a trash bag!
Yep.
Look at that little liberal progressive
Today
trash
addresses on air. Guthrie is heartbroken. Kathy Lee ready to forgive.
They want to believe that they're gods. They're
Megan,
such pathetic
I heard
idiots.
rumors. Geraldo, news is a 30
Ooh,
business.
Geraldo, that doesn't sound so. That doesn't like he's condemning it.
It doesn't.
That sounds like
So,
he's trying to. He
big
may have stuff on him.
Question now is who's going to replace Matt Lauer?
Who cares? They're all dead anyways. Mainstream media is dead. Okay, go ahead, Dan.
Apparently, Lauer had a button on his desk that he could push in order to lock the office door.
What?
That's being reported. It's not here on the Drudge, but I've seen it elsewhere, yes.
That is outrageous.
And he would
What the
send
hell?
lewd texts to interns.
Why would you have a button in a NBC broadcasting studio that locks the doors?
Office, and it's a personal office.
Oh, locks his personal office.
Right. So that when after someone came in, he could lock the
He could
door
lock- oh my gosh!
behind her, so she couldn't get out.
Yes, that's crazy.
So that kind of a thing. That's what he had.
That is ridiculous. Okay, go ahead.
Unknown Hollywood celebrity is being accused of exposing women to HIV.
Oh my lord!
Smartphone.
Well, that's not a crime now, according to California.
They're donating blood. It's not a crime. Smartphone addiction creates imbalance in the brain. Mueller delays grand jury
I'm gonna
testimony
remove
amid
myself,
signs
'cause
of
I
Flynn
cannot-
deal.
I can't. I'm gonna start talking.
Trump tweets UK shares footage of alleged attacks by Muslims and a Downing Street blast that. Then Trump digs into Scarborough, NBC, and more. The judge allows DNC to depose Spicer on election night activities. Office opens case file into accusation Kellyanne broke the law. Not funny Garrison Kyler is that? Fired for alleged improper behavior, claims women grabbed below his belt. Scientists take new step towards creating artificial life. A mysterious odor plagues L.A. ESPN cuts another 150 employees. BuzzFeed acts 100. Siberia temperatures down to minus 60 degrees, and it's only November.
It's a brisk spring day. Siberia.
Moody's warns cities to address climate risks or face downgrades. Love at first sight does not exist, find psychologists.
See that? Korean dramas are fake. Korean dramas are fake.
I don't know. I kind
Women's
of
porn.
I don't know. I kind of doubt that study. But anyway, Clinton redemption, 2020. McAuliffe seriously considering to run for president. McAuliffe, of course, being a very close associate to the Clinton family. Clyburn casts doubt. All Conyers accusers are white, so they can't believe them. Embattled Democrat has no plan to resign. Congresswoman Pelosi comments that women back decades. Franken lectures on female health. I'm sure he's an expert.
Oh my gosh, give me a break.
I'm sure he's an expert. Jane Fonda, Gloria Allred, anti-Trump docs dominate Sundance 2018. Tax cut brawl begins. Wall Street Journal, the Rubio-Schumer amendment. Senate GOP campaign arm hacks donor data from House Republicans. Media meltdown over Melania's White House Christmas decor. Walls of the damned, they say. Nightmarish scene from The Shining. The media is really attacking her. Mystery dozens of decapitated birds found in garbage bags. Robots coming for jobs of 800 million people. Toyota showcases humanoid that mirrors the user. And Amazon releases an AI-powered camera. GM unveils driverless cars aiming to lead the pack. West Wing creator floats reboot with black president. NFL plan to squelch anthem protest causes player splinter. A receiver to wear custom Copernic tribute cleats. And Jay-Z discusses rap, marriage, and being black man in Trump's America. University to allow students to self-identify as persons of color. That's convenient. We can all be black.
Oh my gosh.
American tourists held for bearing bums at Thai temple. 2 American young men were arrested.
I mean, what are these stars going to do now? Now everybody can be black.
Or Elizabeth Warren. We can all be like Elizabeth
Well,
Warren.
all the people who are, Stephen Crowder and Alex Jones should say, well, I'm black. I'm no longer white.
We can all be Cherokee.
And if you attack me, you're a white supremacist.
We can all be Cherokee like Elizabeth Warren.
Alex Jones should say, if you criticize me, you are racist because I'm black.
Japan and China dominate list of world's top restaurants.
Oh my
A lobster with Pepsi tattoo, a Pepsi sign tattooed, is a sign of garbage on ocean floor.
Oh my gosh.
Deepest fish in sea swims 26,716 feet below the surface. Wow. Science shows animals feel emotions and have distinct personalities. Ferrari thief busted begging for gas money at station.
Animals may have different personalities and feel emotions, but they don't have the consciousness of human beings. They don't have the self-awareness.
ISIS taunts Vegas and new video. American Airlines glitch leaves scores of holiday flights without flights. 15,000. They're short of 15,000 pilots or flights. I'm not sure. Goldman warns highest valuation since 1900. Pain is coming.
See that? The economic collapse.
Yellen says rates have to rise to prevent boom bust. But stocks soar more. Records smashed.
It's unsustainable.
And yet it keeps going. Bosnian war chief dies after being filmed drinking poison at The Hague. His appeal was rejected, so he took out a vial of poison and drank it and died on the spot. He was sentenced to 20 years. Political unrest grips Honduras after disputed election. North Korea new missile bigger and more powerful. And Haley says it brings us closer to war. That was the UN ambassador. Naked tag game in Nazi gas chamber shocks. Potentially hazardous asteroid to fly by Earth, closest passed in 40 years. A cataclysmic super eruption, closer than thought. Will Tesla die for lack of cobalt? Apple rushes to resolve huge password glitch. Fidelity users blocked from accessing accounts. Horror, son mutilates dad and posts selfies after murder. Arby's worker chases robber into the river with a car, points gun until cops arrive.
Wow.
I just wonder if he didn't get fired.
Why don't you cue some of those North Korea stories? Let's go do the top news, the story that Tim mentioned. The fast-moving national reckoning over sexual harassment in the workplace toppled another television news star on Wednesday when NBC fired Matt Lauer, the co-host of its most profitable franchise, today after an allegation of inappropriate sexual behavior with a subordinate. The downfall of Mr. Lauer, a presence in American living rooms for more than 20 years, adds to a head-spinning string of prominent firings over sexual harassment and abuse allegations. This is amazing. See, this happened all after 9/23. All after a true Eve was placed in the position of true mother. Satan's kingdom starts collapsing. Why? Because Satan is the first woman abuser. Satan is the first female, pedophile. Female, chasing pedophile. Okay? And so when a true mother spiritually stands in that position of the restored Eve and has as a faithful, powerful woman who loves God first, not the world, then Satan's structure started collapsing, especially in the wake of the Han mother and her failure. Wow, the downfall of Mr. Lawyer, a presence in American living rooms for more than 20 years, adds to a head-spinning string of prominent firings over sexual harassment and abuse allegations. NBC News said it had decided to dismiss its star morning actor after a woman met with network executives on Monday to describe her interactions with him. While it is the first complaint about his behavior over the 20 years he's been at NBC News, we were also presented with reason to believe that this may not have been an isolated incident. Andrew Lack, NBC News chairman, wrote in a memo to staff. On Wednesday, NBC received at least 2 more complaints related to Mr. Lauer, according to a person briefed on the network's handling of the matter. One complaint came from a former employee who said that Mr. Lauer had summoned her to his office in 2001, locked the door, and sexually assaulted. He provided her account to the New York Times. She provided her account, New York Times, but declined to let her name be used. She told the Times that she passed out and had to be taken to a nurse. She said she felt helpless because she didn't want to lose her job and that she didn't report the encounter at the time because she felt ashamed. Representative Mr. Lauer did not respond for multiple requests for comment. News of Mr. Lauer's sudden downfall shook the television world, where he had established himself as one of the most powerful men in his industry. Even President Trump, who himself has denied multiple allegations of sexual misconduct, weighed in, seizing on Mr. Lauer's failure to announce NBC's news coverage and call for other senior officials at NBC News to be ousted. Mr. Lauer, 59, joins an ignominious group of media figures felled by the recent spate of harassment claims, including the studio mogul Harvey Weinstein, comedian Louis C.K., the CBS host Charlie Rose, and political journalist Mark Halperin. Journalists at several news outlets had recently conducted interviews with former and current NBC employees about Mr. Lauer's behavior, alerting the network to potential articles about him. But it was the formal complaint on Monday that prompted NBC to take action. In an editorial meeting on Wednesday, Mr. Lack and Mr. Lauer said that Mr. Lauer's involvement with the woman who made the complaint began while they were in Sochi, Russia, to cover the Winter Olympics in 2014, and that their involvement continued after they returned to New York, according to two people briefed on the meeting. Other Today hosts learned of Mr. Lauer's termination around 4 a.m. on Wednesday. Staff members were told just minutes before the show went on the air at 7 a.m. Savannah Guthrie, Mr. Lauer's co-anchor, was visibly shaken when she delivered the news to the viewers, describing Mr. Lauer as a dear, dear friend, and adding that she was heartbroken for the brave colleague who came forward to tell her story. And there you go. There you go. Scarborough's brother. I supported Trump all along, but he just crossed the lines, he says. This is in reference.
There was an incident some time back where a woman was found dead in Scarborough's office.
That's right. And what did the president tweet? Well, they don't show his tweet. He said, investigate. He tweeted, investigate it. Scarborough is he said, I don't know the exact quote, but I know that in that part of the quote, he said, investigate. And here we are. Harry and this actress are getting married. Love at first sight doesn't actually exist. Fine psychologist. Men are more likely to think they fall in love at first sight. How did you know she was the one? Prince Harry was asked in his engagement. That very first time we met, he replied, it was love at first sight, he says, but it doesn't exist. Psychologists at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands scientifically investigated the phenomenon to try and work out whether the common rom-com trope is real. Disappointingly for the romantics amongst us, they concluded that we often think is love at first sight. It's in fact more likely strong physical attraction. Exactly. Researchers conducted the study on 396 participants, roughly 60% of whom were women. Most were heterosexual, and the vast Dutch and German students. Via an online survey, participants were asked questions about their current romantic relationship, if they were in one. They were then shown pictures of various strangers and asked to rate their attraction to them, noting any feelings of love, including intimacy, passion, commitment, and eros, which is measured by statements such as, I feel that person and I were meant for each other. They were also asked whether they felt that they were experiencing love at first sight. Two further studies were conducted which involved speed dating, where participants either spent 90 or 20 minutes getting to know each other. Again, they were asked their feelings for their potential partners. Taking the results of all tests into consideration, 32 participants described 49 experience of love at first sight. However, this was strongly linked to finding the other person incredibly physically attractive. With every point increase on the 5-point attraction scale, a participant was 9 times more likely to report love at first sight. But at the speed dating events, none of the instances of reported love at first sight was mutual. To conclude, our findings suggest that love at first sight reported at actual first sight resembles neither passionate love nor love more generally, the researcher said. It's basically sexual attraction. That's what it is. That's all it is. Love at first sight is simply sexual attraction. You're not supposed to have love at first sight. Okay? You're supposed to have discernment and to be able to say, hey, this is a person I can build a covenant with God with, you see. I can build success with this person in the long term. That's what love is about. It's about building an empire of victory with God, with another person who is your spouse in the long run. And that victory and that empire of love then becomes an asset for your future gene set and progeny. You see? It's not about just, oh, I fell in love with him. And so what if these people, yes, they may be deluded in thinking that they fall in love with these people, but that's the whole point. Love at first sight is delusional. It's not real. It's physical attraction. Love is deeper than physical attraction. Love has God's perspective in mind. Love has God's covenant in mind. Love has God's picture in mind. So love has to be transcendent. It has to transcend the temporary attraction. Because why? Even though you get married to a freaking supermodel, you're still going to fight with her. You're still going to disagree with her. You're still going to argue with her. And love has to transcend those superficial differences. So what people in romantics call love at first sight, which is a delusion, is just merely physical attraction. And everybody knows this who's honest. Love at first sight is a sham. It's a sham to sell women pornos in the guise of Korean dramas and romantic dramas. This is just pornography, okay? Women's pornography. The whole romanticization of love at first sight, which is simply, it's a delusional concept, is to dissuade women from having actual brains and actually aligning with God's perspective in trying to, in searching for love. Instead, it trains them to be just physically attractive and have this temporary dopamine hits and trust dopamine hits, when dopamine hits are the most untrustworthy things. The Bible doesn't say trust dopamine, it says trust God. Lean not to your own understanding. Trust, acknowledge him in all your ways, he will make your path straight. Trust him, trust him. He has what's right for you because he loves you and made you. You have to trust his covenant, because in his covenant is how you're designed to be happy and have success and flourish. Your Father in heaven positions you for success, even though it may not be honey to your ears. It may not be what the world tells you to build up your egocentricity. You see what I'm saying? Love at first sight is fake. Everybody who's honest knows it. Love is not just physical attraction. It's not just, oh, I just fell in love with that person. Oh, so stupid. If you're approaching marriage that way, you're screwed. You're dead. You're dead meat. Because what about when that feeling goes away? Oh, I don't love him. I don't love him anymore. Could I get a bigger, better deal than BBD? Oh, that man is a big BBD. Maybe the one I have right now is a lesser, smaller deal. I want a bigger, better deal. And this is the Queen was talking about this the other day. This is the reason why girls, after they get married, still get into depression, because they're still comparing. They're still all this. Oh, my husband. Blah, blah, blah. And then they get married, and then they start comparing. Their comparative jealous minds start coming in, and they start looking at other men and say, "Oh, he's a bigger, better deal. He's a bigger, better deal." And then they get depressed, and then their husband doesn't look attractive anymore. They're so stupid. Because they're not in control of their emotions. They're not aware. They're not reflexive. They're not conscious. And they trust dopamine hits. And then you girls will sabotage yourself doing that. Dumb, 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 dumbs. Dumb, dumb, dumb. And of course you'll be unhappy doing that too. When you find your spouse, the best thing to do is tell yourself every day 3 good things about your spouse. That's the best thing to do. Don't trust your dopamine hits. Don't trust your stupid emotions. They lie to you all the time. Tell yourself 3 good things about your spouse every day. And then when you want to have a bigger, better deal and you have a jealousy fit and you have a little envy fit of another woman, you'll say, you know what? That's screwed. That's stupid. Because I have a man that has the blah, 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 blah. And you're used to being in a habit of having 3 wonderful things you're seeing about your man. And you'll see your love will grow towards him as you acknowledge and recognize the good characteristics of him. But no. Newlywed girls always want to just compare. Oh, he has a bigger tummy than that person. Oh, he has this. And many times this is the most stupidest crap. It's the stupidest, most shallow crap. And then they want you to treat them as if they're not shallow when they're complaining about stupid, shallow crap. Oh my gosh, like unconscious, unaware people are they're so frustrating to be around. And of course, everybody, and no one is perfect. Everybody has, moments of non-clarity, but it's the percentages. People who are mature have a higher percentage of being aware of themselves than brain-dead, emotionalized, dopamine-addicted idiots who have literally no perception of themselves. So don't sabotage yourself. Love at first sight doesn't exist. Thank God for science. Love at first sight is fake. It's to sell you porn, girls, okay? It's to sell you Korean drama porn. That's what it's there for. It's there to lure you into believing your dopamine hits when they will destroy you. Dopamine hits, don't trust them, babies. Don't trust your dopamine hits. Trust your heart that is centered in God. Trust your mind that is also centered in God. Don't trust your dopamine hits. Hey, look, you can enjoy emotions, but remember, tell yourself 3 good things about your man. Tell yourself every day. That's your spiritual practice. Tell yourself. That's how you'll end up respecting him, by respecting the person that God brought to you and cleaved to one flesh to. Right? That's how you respect him. The more you remind yourself, because people forget very quickly, the more you remind yourself of why you should be grateful to people. It's like, this is very important. Parents have to remind you, parents out there too. You got to remind your children why they should be grateful for you. It's not ego tripping. Children are stupid, and children are forgetful, and children are dumb. And so they forget, and they always want to self-victimize and pretend their life is the hardest thing when it's pathetically easy. Right? They're in a delusional state. So you as a parent, you should be in the habit of constantly and lovingly reminding your children how, not so they get a guilt trip, but just realistically that they're reminded that their dad and mom are, that they're a blessing to them. Stop being guilt-shamed and believing that that's some kind of arrogant thing. It's important to tell your kids that they have a super mom and dad. Of course, you have to do your homework. Try to be a mature mom and dad and not a freaking little child. Obviously, you're a little child and you're emotionally inept and you tell your child that, they're going to think you're a freaking hypocrite. So at least try to freaking play the role a little bit and be mature and be reflective and conscious and not be addicted to dopamine hits and nag on your children all day. If you nag on your children all day, and you say that to them, of course they're not going to believe you, okay? So you have to obviously have some self-restraint and maturity. And then you have this sort of trust buildup that then you can use to say those things, right? It's very important. You got to remind people why they should be grateful. I remind these kids who I train freely, these little ungrateful pieces of crap sometimes. I train them freely. I give them things that they would have to pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for. And I remind them that because otherwise they think they deserve it, which they don't. I don't have to train any one of those fools. I don't have to waste my time to train any one of them bums. And it is important for them to recognize and remember that. Because people don't just give you stuff for free. If they do, it's a benevolent action which you should be grateful for. And parents usually are benevolent. That doesn't mean they're perfect. That doesn't mean perfect. Please, parents, when you remind your children, also try to be mature yourself, okay? Stop the nagging. Stop the bitching at your children. It drives them nuts. Do you understand? Useless bitching doesn't help your children. It harms them. It hurts them. It will separate them from your relationship. Stop hyper-focusing on the eldest child and bitching at them all the time. You know you do it, parents, especially moms. You know you focus on the eldest child, bitching at them all the time. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Be mature human beings. Stop being little children. Right? And then you'll have the moral high ground to remind your children that they can be grateful, or remind them of the gratitude. Look, there's all these studies in positive psychology, which is the most highest attended psychological classes in the Ivies, particularly at Harvard. There are tons of studies that show just being grateful, remembering 3 things of gratitude per day, will pull people out of depression. It's when you get in this vicious cycle of self-victimization and pretending your life is so difficult when it's not, and so pathetically easy comparatively to other people across the world. It's when you get into this vortex of self-egocentrism and self-victimization and thinking your life, oh, everybody's against me and my life is so bad. Shut up! Everybody suffers. Everybody experiences pain. That's part of the human experience that God allows to experience so we can see that we exist. And once we see it, we ask existential questions of why we exist. And then we search for Him. There's a reason why you're allowed to experience pain and suffering. It's not so you can go in little vortex spirals of where you're trying to worship yourself and do little self-worship fits guised in the what is it? The trope of self-reflection. When it's not self-reflection, it's self-victimization. And then you got these liberal lunatics that will encourage you to do that, say that, oh, it's understanding your emotions, get in touch with your emotions. You'll have people that actually tell you to do that when it's proven that it makes you more unhappy and less productive and less successful and a detriment to society. No, it's better to tell yourselves why you're grateful. Why are you grateful every day? The True Mother talked about it yesterday. Why are you grateful every day? If you want to bitch on your spouse all the time, your spiritual homework is to say 3 good things about him or her every single time you feel you want to bitch on them. You have to name 3 things why you're grateful. See, then you'll immediately see that your emotions start changing. Why? Because emotions are transient, they are impermanent, they lie to you. But if you don't hit them back with a counterattack, they will take you over and dominate you. Do not trust your emotions. They are very deceiving, and they're also impermanent. They never remain the same. Never. You can feel totally in love in 1 second and totally at hate the next second. Emotions are crap. They are lying things to you. And of course, women are way more susceptible to emotional hits. So, of course, honorable and mature women, that's why it is important for the safety of your children too, so you don't drive them bonkers, that you have maturity in your emotional intelligence, your emotional control factors. You know, the easiest way is just so simple. When you want to bitch about your husband, when you want to bitch about your children, when you want to bitch about your friends, whatever it is, just say 3 things you're grateful for them. Every time your mind wants to bring up these things so you can pretend that your life is so hard and pretend that these people are all against you and pretend that you're the big victim that everybody misunderstands, but only God knows you. Shut up. Shut up. It's such a pathetic trope. Every time you feel that and you use that as justification to attack people and be mean to people and nag on your children and in the bad cases, abuse them, stop yourself. Say 3 good things you're grateful for, and you'll see your emotions change. They totally change. They radically change. That's how wimpy they are. But it's you're wimpy. The fact that you're getting beat up by these wimpy emotions, the fact that shows how weak you are. So when you feel stupid emotions that boggle your mind and get you all flustered, go to 3 things of gratitude. If you don't have a spouse, if you're not married yet, if you don't have children yet, and you feel all these emotions about this or that situation, just shut your mouth, just shut your brain down, and just turn your brain on, and just think of 3 things why you're grateful today, for example. And you'll see that your mind goes off the emotion, gets pulled off the emotion, and gets pulled into the act of positive psychology and gratitude, which will then make you feel grateful for the fact that you're alive. Hey, even though this kind of crappy stuff happened to me today, at least I'm alive. At least I'm breathing. At least I got a beautiful fresh air today that I enjoy. Boom, boom. So you changed. Already the atmosphere has changed. You can't get into your self-victimization, psychopathic, pathological spiral anymore. You see? Because you've now pulled out of that and gone to positive psychology, and you've gone to positive things which God has already given you and which He blesses with you all the time. You see what I'm saying? Just simple things. When you want to nag somebody as a parent, when you want to nag your spouse, When you want to do that kind of stuff, just say 3 things of gratitude. Your life will change. That's literally how easy it is. The fact that people don't do it shows you how weak they are, because strong people do it all the time. Strong people do it all the time. Because strong people, that doesn't mean you don't have weak moments. But in those weak moments, strong people can act differently. They act differently. Just like in moments in real fighting, fighters who have actual training in fighting will act differently than people with no training. You see? So thank goodness signs are showing that no stupid love at first sight. This is such a deceptive. A lot of young people get so screwed because they're trying to choose. They're young and dumb. They don't know. They don't know. This is why the parents need to be involved. This is why fathers emphasis on the parents being, because the parents have wisdom. And of course, thank goodness psychology is coming out and showing love does not come at first sight. It's all fake, folks. Woo! It's all fake. It's all fake. It's just physical attraction. That's all it is. When you're looking for a spouse or your parents and you're matching your children, you must look for long-term success, long-term transcendental love, long-term love that overcomes all things, because it's not just love between husband and wife, it's love of God and love of purpose and love of mission that God has given you, and now you're cleaved to one flesh and one mission and one God, and you're cleaved to a central purpose and a civilization, and you're cleaved to something greater than the stupid boy and the girl. That's not what marriage is about. That's not what love is about. Love transcends the narcissism of individuals. Love transcends the egoism of the boy and the girl. Love transcends the stupid selfishness of the boy and the girl. It transcends it. It guides it. It leads it. It allows them to be guided to a higher purpose and power. Okay, I'm ranting theologically again. Let's go. Let's go to, look at this, Goldman Sachs warns that market valuations are at their highest since 1900. Oh, no, don't tell me break time. There's all these crazy things happening. The markets are, go quickly to the North Korea, quick. Let's go.
The North Korean missile launch appears calibrated to avoid American military response. In other words, this is a Wall Street Journal article saying that, yes, they shot the missile, 2 days ago, but they didn't shoot it towards Guam. They didn't shoot it over Japan. It made it land in the Sea of Japan, so that seems to, they wanted to test their missile, but they also wanted to avoid a U.S. military response, and so that's how they made that judgment.
Well, they're not doing a great job at it, to be honest.
Well, they're not giving...
They're getting pretty close for Trump pulling the trigger.
Previously, they said that they talked about exploding a hydrogen bomb over the Pacific. That would certainly have brought a military response, but they didn't do that. So they're making their choices this way. U.S. President Trump spoke to Chinese President Xi Jinping Wednesday, the White House said, underscoring the determination of the United States to defend ourselves and our allies from the growing threat, and calling on China to work to convince North Korea to end the provocation.
North Korea has no moral high ground. I mean, the way they behave. Everybody's turning on them, including China, in the world geopolitical scale. They're like, okay, if they're going to do this, just do it. Just do it. This is like ridiculous. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
At a campaign-style rally in St. Charles, Missouri on Wednesday, Mr. Trump appeared to refer to Mr. Kim as Little Rocket Man, a frequent insult, and told the cheering crowd he's a sick puppy. Tuesday's launch, the first in September, marks a logical progression in North Korean efforts to secure an effective nuclear deterrent. I don't know if a deterrent is the right word. I don't think they're not. Why they? More tests are likely in the months ahead, said Yang Jiyu, a Korean affairs expert and senior fellow at the China Institute of International Studies, a think tank affiliated with the Chinese Foreign Ministry. North Korea's missile launches enjoy diminishing marginal utility in terms of political impact and shock value, Mr. Yang said. The latest test doesn't really affect the options that China and the U.S. have in dealing with North Korea. So people are saying, well, they shot another one, so the shock value is diminishing. The launch drew condemnations from the U.S., South Korea, and UN General Secretary and triggered calls for fresh sanctions. China struck a measured response, issuing a stock criticism of Pyongyang while calling on other governments to refrain from measures that would exacerbate tensions. China expresses grave concern in opposition to the relevant launching activity. Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang told the reporters he urged North Korea to stop actions that heighten tensions on the Korean Peninsula. Asked if Beijing was willing to tighten sanctions on North Korea, Mr. Geng didn't respond directly, saying China would uphold the principles of stability and peace on the Korean Peninsula. South Korea's Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon said at a press briefing that the test was part of North Korea's efforts to be recognized as a nuclear state and deal with the U.S. at a higher position. Hours after the launch, dictator Kim Jong-un declared Pyongyang had finally realized the historic cause of completing the state nuclear force. According to the state-run Korean Central News Agency, North Korea said the missile was fired from a mobile launch system, and then Mr. Kim personally oversaw the test. It wasn't immediately clear how the Hwasong-15 or Mars-15 differed from the two Hwasong-14 missiles that Pyongyang launched in July. The latest test reached a higher maximum altitude or apogee than its predecessor, about 2,800 miles versus 1,740 miles. That gives it a larger theoretical range and ability to reach Washington, independent experts said. North Korea offered few clues on the differences, saying only that Hwasong-15 has much greater advantages in its tactical and technological specifications and technical characteristics. What is much more important is to try to figure out if North Koreans are able to fire a missile that can carry multiple warheads, said Cho Dong-jun, Deputy Director of the Institute for Peace and Unification Studies, a think tank at Seoul National University. Trying to defend against multiple warheads is much more difficult. Investors had a muted reaction, underscoring the new reality that North Korea's ballistic missiles may have lost some of their ability to galvanize a response. Stock markets in Asia mostly gained ground, while South Korea's benchmark Kospi index finished the day where it began after trading in positive territory early in the session. The Korean won climbed to its highest levels against the dollar in more than 2 years. Compared to recent provocations, we judge today's provocation as being relatively soft, said Kwon Young-sun, chief Korea economist at Nomura, an investment bank. It would take a bigger step from Pyongyang or an attack on the U.S. forces to goad Washington into a military response, security analysts said. An open-air test over the Pacific would be a big game changer. That would precipitate a U.S. action, said Gordon Flake, a Korea specialist at the Perth USA Asia Center in Australia. Right now, I'm not so sure the difference between apogees is fundamentally a game changer. Scott Seaman, an Asia director at Eurasia Group in Washington, said the latest missile launch didn't change his assessment of a 20% chance of military conflict. 20% is still pretty high. The missile test came just over a week after Mr. Trump put North Korea back on the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism. During his visit to Asia earlier this month, Mr. Trump held open the door for peaceful resolution to the standoff and indicated there had been signs of progress from Pyongyang. The UN Security Council met Wednesday, etc., etc. And Nikki Haley said this brings us closer to war.
There you go, folks. It's starting to heat up. We're going to take a short break. Be right back after this with our special high-level guest. Stay with us.
Hi there, folks, and look at what I've got here today. My God, take a look at this. This is a BFR in 454 Casul with an octagonal barrel, magna porting, micarta grips. And look at that, it even has my initials on it, JM. Look at that thing of beauty. My God. Pop open the cartridge insertion door and look at that cylinder spin. The finest revolvers in the world. That's a cannon. That's a cannon. Oh, man. Pretty accurate, though. Pretty much on target. Oh boy! Massive repo. Hi there, folks. And look at what I've got here today. My God, take a look at this. This is a BFR in 454 Casull with an octagonal barrel, magna porting, micarta grips. And look at that, it even has my initials on it, JM. Look at that thing of beauty. My God. Pop open the cartridge insertion door and look at that cylinder spin. The finest revolvers in the world. That's a cannon. That's a cannon. Oh, man. Pretty accurate, though. Pretty much on target. Oh boy! Massive repo.
And we are back. Welcome back. Thursday, November 30th, 2017. We're now going to go to our pre-taped interview with our wonderful guest today, whom I'll introduce right now. Check out this clip. And we are back. Welcome back to the King's Report. Saint King reporting live from the Chaniagung studios to all the kings and queens of the Kingdom of God. On this beautiful morning, we're taping this in the evening, but we're airing it in the morning. And of course, we have an incredible American hero, a true legend. John Tig Teagan is joining us today. As all of you know, John Teagan, or commonly known as Tig, it leveraged over 13 years of high-profile security and force protection expertise within contract and government agencies, along with his military experience as a Marine sergeant. He also brought a powerful, thought-provoking, and engaging presentation in his 13 Hours movie, first-hand account of the Benghazi attacks to audiences all over the world. As a former military sergeant and infantry squad leader, John applied his military training as a security protection contractor for Blackwater Security on missions in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iraq. His work as part of the CIA's GRS, or Global Response Staff, would change his life forever. An integral team leader and team member taking part in over 40 overseas deployments. Wow. Providing low-profile security in high-threat environments throughout the world, culminating in unexpected recognition on a global scale. As the most experienced annex security team member for the CIA's GRS, he was an essential part of the rapid response to the terrorist attack on September 11, 2012, when Islamic militants attacked the American diplomatic compound in Benghazi, Libya, killing 4 Americans, Ambassador J. Christoph Stevens, Information Officer Sean Smith, and 2 CIA operatives, Glenn Doherty and Tyrone Woods, both former Navy SEALs. John, thank you so much for joining us. You said I could refer to you as Tig. Can you tell us a little bit about, I've seen some of your incredible presentations and interviews on the web. Of course, you were your whole team that was out there was critical in supporting President Trump to defeat Hillary Clinton, who would, of course, wreak absolute havoc, basically killing America, bringing the most hardcore anti-American, anti-freedom, anti-sovereignty, totalitarian, authoritarian, George Soros, globalist-backed tyranny, and essentially disarming the public, which you promised to do, and bringing literal Satanism. My father always referred to the type of work that the left was doing when he founded the Washington Times, etc., as political Satanism. That is, that it creates the environment for actual evil, actual Satanism to exist, and for power to be concentrated to the worst of the population, that is a psychopathic class or the predatory class that uses centralized power then to parasitically feed off of the population. But of course, you served with incredible honor and courage for over 40 deployments overseas. We can't thank you enough for all that you've done for every single one of us that live here in America, that are protected by the laws and the Constitution here, and all the families and men, women, and children who are indebted to men and women as yourself, who go out there and put your life on the line. As Jesus said, and I saw it on one of your shirts, no greater love is there than laying your life down for your friend. And that's what Christ talked about as the greatest love. And you guys actualize it for people that you don't even know in this country. And it's amazing that somebody like Hillary, who was trying to get the highest seat in the world, the U.S. presidential office, how much utter contempt, arrogance, and hatred she had for those men and women who are putting their lives on the line to defend people like her, and part of that entire regime of just demonizing and trying to silence you. So we're so thankful what you did to fight for President Trump being elected. Of course, fighting for this country and all your deployments. You're a true American hero, and it's a true honor to be able to talk with you this morning.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me on. It's awesome.
Okay, Dick, so if you could tell us, how did you get into military training or what was your interest when you were a young person that drove you to eventually join the Marines?
I think I always had it in me since I grew up in Iowa. I was born in Iowa and lived right across the street from a recruiting station, and I always went there after school, and I think that's just kind of where it started. And ended up moving out to Colorado, around 5 big military bases, Air Force Academy, Fort Carson. So being around those people, the Army and the Air Force, I was like, I don't want to do that. So decided to be a Marine. Figured it'd be a lot harder anyways. So I got into the Marine Corps about 95, like you were saying, and got out in 5, Sergeant Squad Leader in 99, and got married before I got out. My wife, she was in the Army, and she got deployed over to Kuwait for a year in 2002 to 2003. That's how I found about contracting. And when she came back home, we actually both went back over there and became contractors, and it just kind of went from there.
Wow, so you really are a military family, aren't you? That's amazing.
Yes, we are.
That's great, man. You know, I think it's so important. You know, I mean, the Bible says when man will leave us, of course, father and mother, or his parents, and cleave to his wife, and two will become one flesh. I mean, and the two together in that covenant with God is even greater than the parts that are separate. You know, the man and woman separately. But how important it is to have a spouse that can understand what you've gone through, what you've been through, and be in that same realm and same, you know, that same spirit and the same world.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier, especially for being deployed. You know, she knew exactly what was going on. She didn't have to guess what was going on. So, for one, I mean, we were both over there for a couple of years together. So, you know,
wow,
it was a lot easier.
Now, just on another note, when you were younger, did you practice like martial arts or things like that got you into just thinking about combat or self-defense? Was there any of that in your life?
No, not really. Never did. I did a little bit of boxing, a little bit of kickboxing, but that's pretty much about it. I wouldn't say I'm very good at it, but I can hold my own.
You definitely can hold your own.
Did a lot of paintball course growing up. You know, a bunch of friends got together. We'd go play in the wood, and so you know, instead of BB guns, we had paintball guns. So that was pretty much just about it. And joined the Marine Corps, and they pretty much taught me everything I needed.
Now, you know, you may know, but or as our guests know, and as our community knows, you know, I train the kids here and the young people in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a brown belt under the Renzo Gracie line. But you know, I know that in the military that they started incorporating like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling for empty hands combat. Of course, the weapons and everything is there. But for empty hands, did you guys do like empty hands combat when you were training, when you guys were in the Marines back then?
We did, it was called pretty much old school line training, still kind of World War II kind of era stuff. It was some hand-to-hand combat, some weapon stuff, but none of the grappling, anything like that. It was pretty much straight, you're striking to kill, and that's pretty much what they taught us.
It's amazing. Did you guys do like also like knife combatives with like Kali Eskrima or some kind of knife arts as well?
I mean, just for military tactics wise, we did night stuff, but not hand-to-hand stuff at night. That would more be like special forces and stuff like that. They did that.
Interesting. Yeah, so I'm just curious. I'm curious because you know it's such a like for our community we find it so like valuable, you know, because even in the scripture it said when the Pharisees asked Christ, what are the commandments of God? And he said, love God, love your neighbor. And really, when you think about it, what is it? There's nothing greater, as you say on one of your T-shirts, beautiful T-shirt that you have on your website. Maybe we can pull it up for our viewers to see. But you quote the scripture where Christ says that, there's no greater love than laying your life down your friends. And in the same manner, we're supposed to love God with all our heart, strength, soul, and might. But at the same time, he also says, love your neighbor. So you may not get along with your neighbor. You may not even like your neighbor. I mean, one of my neighbors, I really hate their dog. But, the mentality of a Christian to, if something happens to your neighbor, even though you may not like them or their dog, you would still go out and try to defend them. You would try to have a sheepdog mentality.
Oh, yeah. Just like, when we're over there doing our job, we're not just defending ourselves. We're defending the locals that work with us, and we might not know who they are. They might have in different religion, different beliefs, but they're there. We're going to help them out if we can. And when I went and testified at trial. The Gatala guy, he was right there. The guy who they called the mastermind in the attack that night. I had no ill will against the guy. He's just, he did what he did, and we just beat him pretty much. So I mean, I don't think I had hate towards the guy at all. It's kind of like one of those things. Like I said, it's not really me to forgive him. That's up to God to forgive him, in my opinion. But do I hate the guy? I could really care less about him.
Well, there is real wickedness in the world. I mean, you guys come up to it. You face it right in the face. And with ISIS, I mean, this is real evil. I mean, you have all this moral relativism in the modern age, and they're trying to brainwash our kids in public school and with the Marxist professors in college, all this kind of crap. It's just so ridiculous. But you have, in Isaiah it says very clearly that in the end of time, the good will be seen as evil, evil will be seen as good. And that's really what we're seeing in the modern day with, especially under the Obama administration, under Hillary Clinton. I mean, you're talking about the moral relativism. They're trying to say everything is okay. Everything's the same. Worshiping Jesus Christ or worshiping Satan is the same thing. There's just all this insane relativism. And of course, that leads to sexual relativism. It leads to hypersexualizing kids at 5 years old. They're trying to teach the kids how to masturbate with the UN sex, health science studies in Chicago. They're trying to teach them, brainwash them with transgenderism. And of course, the homosexual political agenda. It can have all sorts of clubs that can evangelize to young people, but you can't even bring a Bible to school. You can't even say the name of Jesus, or somebody's going to get, triggered and get into want a safe space. I mean, this is absolute insanity. It's like living in an asylum, like a loony bin, and the lunatics are running the dang thing.
Yeah, we're definitely going backwards. I mean, everything, from Christmas is being attacked. So
you couldn't even say Christmas. You couldn't even say Merry Christmas under Obama. They would say you're a racist.
Yeah.
Oh,
or you're a supremacist.
They would say you're a racist, white supremacist, bigot, homophobe, Islamophobe, you name it. I mean, it's just total insanity.
Yes, it was.
Oh,
that Trump is turning around slowly. Just definitely, they're fighting him.
Yes, give us your assessment of President Trump. Now we're 1 year in. He's done, in my view, he's just tremendous. We have a Second Amendment judge in there. Gorsuch is in the Supreme Court. Trump is moving. He's putting pressure on Rocket Man. He is really delivering, with the economy, with the stock market as high as it's ever been. Confidence in the markets are high, Just the immigration. I mean, look at this. Illegal immigration is down like 90%. It's incredible what this man is doing to make this country great again. And it's only been 1 year.
Yeah, and the bad thing is, a lot of stuff that he promised had already done with if Congress and the Senate would step up and do what they need to do. He was voted in for the things that he talked about, and they're blocking him on everything, trying to make him look like the bad guy. And it's, I mean, look at just what happened with the Border Patrol agent. The 2 Border Patrol agents recently got attacked by illegals because there's no, you put a fence up, it never would have happened. People say, well, we got those people here. What's the difference of them coming in? Well, at least we'll have less crazies over here, less MS-13 gang members, stop them from getting over here. We'll have less problems and more money in our pocket because we're not paying for them for their medical and their welfare and everything else.
Well, it's so interesting because you see you've seen it in the different countries that you've been in, of course, and how, like, for example, last year under Hillary Clinton, we had the whole Ukraine crisis and Russia almost got into war with Russia. George Soros and Hillary Clinton helping them fund the takeover of Ukraine, literally putting a neo-Nazi in there. I mean, but this is quite common that they want to destabilize these areas. They want to bring in divide and conquer mentality. They want the population to be fighting at each other's throats so they can come in and swoop in as the saviors. And we see that George Soros is funding some of the most radical, BLM, Black Lives Matter organizations, or he's funding Antifa, or he's funding, Linda Sarsour in the feminist movement that is openly supporting Sharia law and says that Ali Sirsi, should have her vagina removed and doesn't deserve to be a woman. When she was female, her genitals were mutilated in her oppressive, misogynist, Islamic, country. These are the people that these people were helping and funding and trying to get all Americans to fight with one another, to get it polarized and balkanized so that they can destabilize this country and bring in MS-13, ISIS, bring in all the jihadis to come in here and literally turn this into Afghanistan or another place that they're imploding.
Yeah, third world country. It's easier to control. I mean, as long as they're fighting with each other, you can control them. Yeah, that's what they do over there. They're always, because a lot of the countries over there, they're tribal. So it's easy to control them because they'll fight amongst each other and not really fight the government. So it's easy to control them. That's pretty much what's happening here, fighting amongst each other. Right now, it's a political division more than anything, so it's not as bad. But, once we start, getting it dumbed down to where states are fighting states and cities are fighting cities, and pretty much that's the direction it was going. I mean, you got people from from New York coming to Colorado telling us how we should live, and that's how it starts. And you got California trying to dictate everything else across the country. And again, that's how it starts. And I think you're seeing a lot more pushback now that Trump's in office. So I think we're heading in the opposite direction, in the good opposite direction.
Well, look how ironic it is. It's amazing because they were trying to say Trump is this racist, he's this homophobe. He was out there, waving an LGBTQ flag, saying that he wants to stand up for all Americans, and they were saying that he's a homophobe. I mean, he was out there, literally standing up for it. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to screw the normal person. He just wants to see people flourish because he's flourished in the beautiful free markets of America and what the founding fathers, the legacy that they've handed down to us. Essentially, really allowing the American citizen to become kings. I mean, in the history of man, kings have only been, the past kingdoms, what we call the satanic kingdoms of the past, have always just been centralized power where the super elite class had owned everything. But, I believe in the kingdom, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be where the co-heirs with Christ have, of course, in the Bible says, let no man take thy crown. Christ gives you a crown. You are as a child of God, we are a co-heir with him. And of course, he rules with a rod of iron. And the rod of iron, or the ability to defend yourself from these predators and demons, is one of the most essential aspects of a free person, to be able to own private property or your kingdom, and that is central to a free market. And of course, the ability to defend that kingdom with arms and the right to defend yourself, which is a God-given natural right.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he says, thou shalt not murder, not thou shalt not kill.
Yes.
You have every right to defend yourself and kill that person if you have to. That's how I see it.
Well, so I heard on one of your interviews that you are training folks in CCW and how to train under stress and how to defend yourself under stress, because of course you've experienced it and you've lived it, and there's no better person to train with. In our community, we're blessed with a former Green Beret who can train us in firearms and tactics and stuff like that. So we're so blessed with our brother here. But it's like, how important is it to learn these things? Like not just go to the range and shoot, but to learn from people who have done the fight, who have really been in the fight. You don't want to learn boxing from someone who never boxed. You don't want to learn you don't want to learn how to choke somebody or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from somebody who doesn't know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You want to learn from somebody who's done it. And how important is it? Maybe you can tell us about your work and how you're empowering people who have CCWs to try to help them train so they can use that skill if they have to under duress.
I mean, the biggest thing that we're doing is we're not standing on the line and shooting static. We're shooting and moving, getting them comfortable, drawing from the holster, from a concealed carry, and make them do it over and over. And I'm right in their face, so it kind of gives, that's where the pressure comes. I'm not going to make you sprint, because after we teach you, it comes up to you to retain it and excel from there. Because, it's like they say, you don't lead a horse to the water, you can't make him drink. So when we're teaching how to shoot multiple targets, get off the X, I'm not teaching you military tactics because, that's just way too much. I mean, that takes a lot of years and, a lot of more training than just, a couple of days. But what we're teaching is you can learn it pretty quick. It gives you a base. You're comfortable with it. And because right now we're just doing mainly females. That way it's more comfortable for them. And they're more of the target than males are anyways, especially, close quarters and stuff like that. And we're teaching them how to shoot from, if they got their weapon in their purse, how to, don't be afraid to pull the trigger. You don't need to pull the gun out. It'll shoot inside your purse. So when they do that the first time, they kind of look at you with, deers ahead, like, holy cow, it really did work. Because they're always thinking, because they go to these courses and they get their CCW and they just get a gun, they get a license to carry a gun, and that's it. It's all the training they get. And they're thinking, well, if I get attacked, I got to pull my gun out of my purse. And like, no, you don't. Watch this. So it opens their eyes, gives them more confidence, and that's really what it is. You're just giving them confidence, and they just go from there. I mean, the women that had it, we've done 2 classes so far, and they just loved it. Even the ones that have been carrying for a long time are like, oh, this stuff I didn't think of. So
wow, I mean, that is like, you used to have in the United States, you used to have shooting classes in public school where you would get instruction on firearms use and safety. I mean, that is such a valuable thing to understand as a person, as somebody, a child of God who's been given dominion over the earth. I mean, that's like absolutely critical to have access and knowledge of how to use this technology, which makes you more powerful than lions and tigers and bears and predators and bad people. And there's a plethora, plenty of bad people and predators and psychopathic classes out there. But how important it is for women to learn this. Can you imagine if we went back old school where we had in the public schools, you would have a firearms safety course and training for young people?
I think they need it again. I mean, we have more shooting now, I think, because of that. I mean, I think people actually have less respect for life than what they used to. And a lot of them don't even understand what a gun can really do. They're too busy watching movies and video games where you can shoot somebody 50 times in a movie. In real life or something, you shoot them once and they're done. Like I've been training my kids with guns since they're 3 years old. And, I took them out and I showed them what a real gun does to an animal. But as a little prairie dog, I got thousands of them out here. But even at that age, they're looking at it, they're like, wow. Because, they got their own toy guns and they're like, well, I'll never point a gun at nobody again. And I tell them the difference between a real gun and a toy gun.
Wow.
Every time, I don't leave my guns out, but I'll leave them out to kind of test them on myself and see if they touch it. Don't even touch them. They'll say, hey, Daddy, your gun's out. I'm like, okay. So, but, it's just like, wow. Again, the more you teach your kids, the better off they'll be in life, just not even with guns, just with everything, school and everything. Well, people want the government to raise their kids or the school to raise their kids. The kids, Look what happened. This is what's happening to our society by allowing the government and schools to raise your kid instead of yourself.
Wow, your kids are so blessed to have such a awesome sheepdog, alpha male father who is loving, and this is so important. There's a lot of psychological studies on this. Of course, I preach about it all the time at my congregation and our ministry. The fathers we know, of course, in terms of God's word, how important the father is for the home as the head of the house. And, there's an order that God gives us. Jesse Lee Peterson, who's another reverend out there in California, he was on a show the other week. And he says, he kind of puts it simple. He says, God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, woman over children. And that's the order that God ordains in a household. That doesn't mean the man is some kind of tyrant or some kind of, oppressive, jihadi or something like that. But that he takes ownership of the house as the head, to represent as Christ even died for the bride, the church. The man is ready to do that as the father. And when you don't have the father, we look at sociological studies, childhood delinquency goes up, violent crime goes up, their income level in the future goes down, marriage retention rates fall, antisocial behavior rises. Everything gets screwed up when you take the man out of the home. And it's interesting because every single political Satanist, socialist, or communist ideology or system has always targeted the alpha males and always targeted good fathers. And it's interesting because you have Hillary Clinton, all the leftists, they hate, they call it toxic masculinity. Anything that's masculine or anything that's about making males honorable and strong and chivalrous and not pushovers and being able to stand up against unrighteousness. This is seen as toxic masculinity, and they want women to throw away their man, get married to the state, and then raise their kids as commies.
Yeah, because then the state can control them all. Look what they're doing to Trump. He raised, 2 older boys. They can't find any dirt on them, so now they want to throw a Russian thing at them, but they're just constantly attacking. But all the stuff they keep coming out with, there's no proof of any of it. I mean, nothing so far is stuck, not a thing. And it just, like you're saying, that's exactly what they're doing. They're just attacking somebody that has, morals.
Well, it's interesting because, having Trump is such an amazing thing, phenomenon, I think, and I think he's a symbol of the age, because it's a resurgence of the masculine figure, the sort of the father figure, and it's okay to be a man. It's okay to be loving towards your, to your children and your spouse, and it's okay to be against evil. It's okay to be a man who likes to lift weights and fight and stuff like that. That whole trend of the man starting to rise up again, the honorable man, the chivalrous man. To rise up again and stand up against this entire global elite structure, which is now coming out, all the pedophile stuff. They were trying to say Trump was grabbing, saying dirty, talk about grabbing women's genitals or stuff like that. Now Matt Lauer, top news of the day, Matt Lauer is now fired from NBC for reportedly grabbing Katie Couric, behind on a regular basis and sexually harassing many people on that staff. I mean, it's all these people that were trying to say Trump was doing that stuff when they were doing it. And this is like, it's so hypocritical, it just makes my blood boil sometimes.
Well, he might have been talking about it, but they were actually doing it.
Oh my God.
Trump's not. I believe, the last person who was perfect that walked the earth was Jesus. So, nobody in this world is perfect, but the thing, like I said, he might have been talking about, but they were doing it. So.
Well, it's incredible because all that stuff is now they doubled down, they tripled down, they just wanted to get him, they just wanted to stop him at all costs. They were just making up all this crazy fraud about the Russian stuff. When they were doing the Russian contracts, uranium one deals, Hillary Clinton selling 20% of the U.S., uranium to Russia. I mean, you name it. They were doing everything. They were saying Trump was a molester. When they're now coming out that, Conyers out there, that Pelosi is defending, who is allegedly assaulting and sexually assaulted numerous peoples. Al Franken with his pictures of him assaulting Leanne Tweeden while she's sleeping. I mean, these things are now coming out about the establishment, and you see now a whole reversal. They wanted him down because they know if he came in, the pedophile networks are start getting slammed. After Trump got in, he's arrested over 10,000 sex traffickers and pedophiles, and you see all the connections in Hollywood with the pedophile cults there. Washington, there's a big one in Colorado that was shut down by the police, law enforcement over there. And of course, internationally, Cardinal Pell, the Vatican, the deputy pope, the second person in the Vatican, is now confirmed. I mean, he's being sued by the Australian courts for having trafficked over 100 little boys over the last 30 years. I mean, this is the Vatican, you know. All this stuff is starting to come out, and the elites and what they're into and their depravity and their iniquity and their wickedness is now coming to light. It's an exciting time to see this unfold.
Yeah. You know, I mean, even looking at all the actors that came out against Trump, now they're going down too for pedophilia and stuff like that. It's just like, you know, guys want to sit there and blame somebody. You need to look at yourself in the mirror, man, because yeah, they seem to be the ones all doing it, and Trump ain't doing anything.
Now, of course, you know that when an animal is cornered, it gets even more violent. It seems that now their big secret, you know, with the pedophile cults and the UN trying to lower the sexual age limit to 10 years old, these people are totally crazy. The EU is trying to lower it to 13 years old. 13 years old. I mean, these people are absolute predator psychopaths, pathological psychopaths who want to prey on children. And I have 5 children. I got 4 boys and 1 daughter. And these type of people are an existential threat to my family and your family and anybody else who loves their children. They're literally trying to lower the age limit through the UN and NAMBLA, which is the North American Man Boy Love Association, which the UN allows to be an NGO. They're trying to lower the sex limit internationally to 10 years old. So some guy can come and date your daughter when she's 10 years old.
Well, I got 640 acres behind me, so I'm not too worried.
And you got a lot of guns too. I mean, these people are sick. This is why, like, Christians are deciding, you know what, I'm not going to send my kids to public school. All my kids are out of public school because it's dangerous to send them there. You're sending them literally to the nest of the devil to be indoctrinated to become a child of hell.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I got my kids in private Christian school, so.
Oh my gosh.
Still going backwards, but hopefully they'll start going forward again.
Well, you know, it's all the prayers and it's all the saints that are singing the praise of God every day. The grandmas that are out there praying for, folks who are standing up on the front line, and of course, all the work that you've done. During the break, I asked you what you think about, of course, today's North Korea. The top news was North Korea shot another ICBM towards Japan. This is the highest one they've shot. Actually, so maybe we can bring up a computer graphic of how high it went into the atmosphere. But it was the highest one. General Mattis has come out saying that it can. They now are confirming that that height, that distance, would be capable of hitting anywhere in the world, including the U.S. I've seen multiple articles on alternative news from very, very high level, top alternative sources like InfoWars or Economic Collapse and Michael Snyder, et cetera, people like this, who wrote about EMP attacks. If they detonate, they don't need, outside the atmosphere, they don't need a re-entry system, and they can detonate it, and that would still cause an electromagnetic pulse that could shut down our grid. How, in your military experience, do you have any knowledge about what is the reality of an EMP attack in your view?
I would hate to be in the cities, especially New York and LA, because they ain't gonna live very long. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of dead people probably within about a month, because they're just gonna go to complete chaos. They're gonna start going to, hopefully they install TVs this time, but the food, it'll go pretty quick. A lot of inner city people, they don't even know where their meat comes from or their eggs. They just think it shows up in the market. There's gonna be a lot of, it's gonna wreak havoc across the country and obviously across the world too, because if it hits in the atmosphere, it's gonna shut more than just us down. If you think,
go ahead.
I'm kind of out in the rural area, so I'm not too worried. Yeah, I won't have no power, but I got a fireplace that burns wood, so I'm not going to freeze to death. And, I got some propane backed up, so I just won't be able to have any communication, which that's fine with me. Might be able to relax a little bit better, but it's going to, An EMP, I mean, there's a book out there called 3 Seconds After. And you want to know what I think it was a NASA scientist who wrote the book, and it's based off of fiction, but he puts a lot of reality into it, and it's just based out of a small town. I believe out of Colorado up in the mountains, and it's a fast read, really good read. It's called 3 Seconds After. You want to know what the reality of an EMP? That's really a good, quick book for a reality check about an EMP going off.
Wow.
And
What would be the standard operating procedure, for example, the federal government, if we had an EMP attack and there was a shutdown? Wouldn't there be some kind of FEMA orders, or wouldn't there be some kind of basically a type of martial law that we brought in? I mean, wouldn't the cities be closed and locked down?
I don't think there's not enough people to do that the whole country. I mean, they'd have to pick and choose. You know, they probably, here in Colorado, I would say they probably lock down NORAD and maybe Peterson Air Force Base and maybe the Air Force Academy. But Peterson, probably Schriever would definitely be in a lockdown. But, you know, martial law across this, I mean, there's only, 4 million U.S. troops. There's no way that 4 million can lock this country down. I mean, so there's going to be, you know, the big cities, I think they're going to let them just go. I mean, it's
Wow.
going to be because, I mean, look at L.A. L.A.'s got, 30 million people in it. Same with New York. What are you going to do with a couple? I mean, the people who've been wanting food, and once communications are gone, you don't know who needs what supply. It's going to be snail mail. So no planes are going to be flying because that's all going to be wiped out because they have no more electronics. You know, the batteries are going to be no good, and especially even in my vehicle, an EMP will go off, all your batteries and all your vehicles are gone. So you have zero power unless they're protected by lead or something like that. I think EMPs won't penetrate. But, you know, they'll have the underground bunkers that have power, so the military itself will probably still be able to communicate. A lot of the SATCOM stuff will probably still be up unless they blow up the satellites. But, you know, phone lines kind of really don't exist that much anymore, so you're going to have no landlines. And I don't think they're doing the little Morse code stuff anymore. But I'm pretty sure I would hope they got something in place, but I've never seen or never heard about it. But as for everybody
for the world, wouldn't it? Because if let's say North Korea did that, that would evoke, the U.S. would have to respond. They would have to go in and tactically nuke North Korea.
Oh yeah, I mean, we still got nuclear ships out there that wouldn't affect, and nuclear subs out there that affect. You know, the only bad thing is, you know, South Korea, they're pretty much screwed. At least right there up next to the DMZ, because you know all the mortar rounds and stuff that they got. You know, I think in my personal opinion, I think we hit them fast and extremely hard, 10 times more than what we did with Saddam the second time and the first time. To combine that by 10 and hit it fast and hard, I think the military itself was just like, we're done. I mean, half of them are starving anyways. And I just saw a recent video of 2 North Korean soldiers defecting and trying to get into, you know, South Korea. And that just happened, a week ago, I think. A video came out.
Oh yeah.
You know,
oh my goodness.
So those,
it's crazy.
I think he might have 100,000 at the most loyal South Korean soldiers. I don't know how many people are in the Korean army, but I think that would be at the most he probably has that's extremely loyal, if that.
Well, it's interesting. You know, it was interesting. We had a Green Beret on the show, and he was talking about, look, if we have to go in there, we're going to have to Davy Crockett them. Apparently, that's one of the tactical nukes they have. And basically, he just said, you would need maybe 20, 30 Davy Crockett's, and basically, you know, incinerate all the mountains right around the 38th parallel, because that's where they have all their heavy artillery, which can, you know, lob, you know, 100,000 shells onto Seoul, the capital city of South Korea, and just wreak utter devastation. In order to, you know, get rid of that, you just have to, you know, do some tactical strikes. I guess it's shape charges connected, you know, nukes connected to shape charges, some of that. He's a demolitions expert and everything, so he knows what he was just mentioning that. But basically, you would have, as you said, hit them hard, hit them fast, and just minimize the damage they could do to South Koreans, these innocent people in the South.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only thing that's really stopping us from doing anything is, you know, the people that are so close to the DMZ within the mortar range. And, But I kind of wonder sometimes how many of those actual mortars still shoot. I mean,
yeah.
You see him parade, but a lot of stuff that he will parade, it's been found that it's just like shells of stuff. It's not even real stuff. So it kind of makes you wonder.
Oh, that's such a good point. Like in South Korea, you know, when we were there, me and my brother were working there under our father there, and you know, we were telling the government, because we were working very close with the Defense Department, et cetera, trying to get them awake and say, look, North Korea is a serious nuclear threat, because you know they had the same liberalization, the Obama style, you know, liberal thing, you know, defund the military, you know, and make Korea weak, et cetera, all this kind of thing. And basically they were trying to create all this resentment towards the American, you know, forces there, which we just saw as crazy. It's just totally suicidal. So we were talking to the Defense Department and, you know, working with the heads of state there. And we were saying, look, Korea has to be strong. Korea should be looking at like an Israeli model, South Korea, or a Switzerland model, you know, so that you're sending all the guys to the military anyway. So if you're going to send all the guys to the military, let them, when they come out of the military and become a civilian again, let them take their guns at least back to their home, like the Switzerland model or the Israeli model, so that if by chance you get attacked, they can get their arms and they can be ready to fight. I mean, we know Hitler didn't attack Switzerland, even though he ravished all of Europe, because he would have to literally, he did estimate he would lose, what, like 1 million troops or something like that? So it's a serious threat when your whole population can immediately transform into a fighting force.
Yeah, I mean, same thing here. I mean, we have over 130 million gun owners.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big fighting force. We're not as trained as you, but hey, but it's still a big force.
Know how to hide in mountains and actually do that guerrilla warfare stuff too. So it's kind of, you know, we don't have to worry about, I don't think we'll ever have to worry about a land invasion. It'll be more like a tactical nuke or EMP or a dirty bomb. But, you know, we start using that stuff, what good are you anyways? Because if you got radiation going around the country, you just wanted to invade, you can't even do anything with it anyways. So,
you know, it's everybody knows, of course, that nuclear warfare is such a political issue. It's not only, of course, military. It's so political because America has to have the high ground, has to have the moral high ground. It can't just be like, okay, we're just going to go and take this guy out, and the world community is going to be like, oh, you know, what are you doing? You know, you're becoming a tyrant, tyrannical. But it's getting to the point where, like, we're getting close to that moral high ground. I mean, they are continuing to terrorize Japan, shooting these ICBM missiles right over a free and sovereign country. I mean, this is absolutely insane.
I mean, I don't think sanctions work on any country. I mean, look at Iran, look at Cuba, North Korea is a prime example. I mean, all these regimes that we put all these sanctions on, they don't care. The leadership doesn't starve. The people will starve, but if the people are too weak to stand up, they can't stand up. I mean, of course, you see like the parades and stuff. Yeah, they got all the healthy people there, but you know, you see actual footage that comes out of North Korea. I mean, they're freaking starving. They're, you know, so.
Oh, man, it's so bad. I've been there because my father sent me there twice when he was in his 90s, and he made me the international president, his successor, you know, et cetera. And he sent me there on his behalf. You know, it's interesting because he was a North Korean. He ran away, of course, because he was preaching the gospel and he was getting, you know, in prison. They kept on, you know, torturing him and stuff like that. So he ran away, went to the South. But it was weird because he started this worldwide movement. Of course, people know us more for like being like a religious movement, but he launched a whole political movement worldwide, a whole victory of communism. We had you know, education centers about educating people about communism, for example, in Russia and in China and in North Korea and South Korea, etc. Japan. I mean, he was heavy into education about how genocidal and how satanic communism is, under the guise of, you know, standing up for the proletariat and the working class, etc. But really what it does, it creates real Satanism, real social engineering, real totalitarian control because he lived under it. And it's interesting, you know, it's a weird kind of love and hate relationship they had with him. He went up to the, Kim Il-sung, I believe it was, the first dad, of the North Korea, after they became that totalitarian state, and he told him, "You have to believe in God, or you will perish. You will be destroyed." And he challenged him directly. And it's interesting because like these commies who like they almost got off on it. They're like, "Man, this guy got balls," So they almost like appreciated him, like kind of like I don't know, in this weird way they kind of I guess they admired that he had enough balls to tell them to their face that their system was evil. They have to get rid of this chuche, red ideology, and they've got to accept God and let Christianity be free in North Korea. And so, so it's weird because he spoke against them all the time, saying communism was so evil and it's satanic. Yet he was so famous worldwide that they kind of wanted to mount his head on the wall as being a Korean. You know what I mean? So this is a wacky thing. Anyway, so I went there on his behalf when he was in his 90s. He sent me because he couldn't travel, so comfortably. Man, I tell you, in the countryside, I was driving down. They were driving us down, and of course, everything's being recorded. Everything's being taped. You're in your hotel rooms, whatever. Everything is bugged. We're driving down the highway, and you see just endless communist little houses, all the same, all these dilapidated 1950s, 60s looking buildings, all painted white. They're like gulags. They're like these gulags that are going all the way down the highway. And we're driving down the highway, and there's like 1,000 troops. I mean, there was like an ocean of troops walking down the highway, doing their little march. And I was like, my God, this is crazy. This is crazy. The people there are so incredibly oppressed. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can just imagine how bad it is. I mean, I probably couldn't imagine how bad it is. I mean, I've been to quite a few third world countries, and I'm pretty sure it's worse there than it was where I was at. I can imagine.
Oh man, it's so heart-wrenching to see that because the South Koreans and North Koreans, they're the same people, but the one are trapped under this incredible oppressive, satanic regime, and the other are protected by the U.S. and are given freedom to worship God and to have free markets and they're prosperous, etc. I mean, you can just see the total, dichotomy. You can see that binary, how different the same people as the brothers live. And it's just like, wow. I mean, it's like, thank God for America that our troops are protecting this country. And I sometimes so angry at the Koreans, like, you ungrateful Koreans. What is wrong with you people? You have America that's sitting there in harm's way to keep you free. Don't stop complaining about them.
Yeah, the thing, Americans back home, I mean, back here, they do the same thing. Even some of the people that we were protecting, they were the same way. They hated us. They didn't like us being there until it hit the fan. Once that happened, then they liked you for about a week.
Yeah. Oh, Lord have mercy. Well, John, it's been so
ruthless. It's just it is what it is. I mean, until, like I said, nobody likes the sheepdog until the wolf shows up.
Oh, Lord, spoken by a true hero and a true patriot. It's amazing. I'm so honored to meet you. Thank you so much. I know you're such a busy man. And I think you're going to be a SHOT Show. I'm going to be down in the booth. I hope I can see you guys. I'll be down there a week, my brother and everybody at CAR. Will you be down at SHOT Show?
Oh, yeah. I'll be there all week.
Fantastic. So I'd like to shake your hand and see your cool Cryptex blazer. But it's a true honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for all that you've done, all that you're doing. Let everybody know about your website, about how people can support you, if you have a Patreon account or if you have ways that people can support the work you're doing now.
Yeah, I got a website. It's just my name, johntigan.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and I have my own nonprofit that helps out veterans and their families with pretty much immediate support and service dogs. it helps them out with PTS, and it's called Beyond the Battlefield. And we also got an Instagram account on there too. So, if you want to help and donate money, and, that's pretty much my causes. I do a lot of stuff for veterans and first responders more than I do anything. So I enjoy doing it.
Oh,
it's awesome.
Goodness. We got to have you back on to explain some of that just a little more in depth. We're coming up to the end of our broadcast now, but maybe we can have you on again at a future date talking about that nonprofit in particular, and of course the whole issue of PTSD for the folks who fight overseas and then come back and are trying to readjust back into the civilian population. What an important topic. It'd be great to get your insight on that.
Yeah, no problem. We can do that.
Such an honor, man. Thank you so much for joining us, Tig. Thank you all for joining us this day on the King's Report. We'll be right back after this. Stay with us. And we are back. Welcome back, folks. Thursday, November 30th, 2017. It is now 8 o'clock, coming to the end of our broadcast today. We thank you for joining us this morning. Hope you have a blessed day. Get out there and praise God in His playground and His office room. Get out into nature. Give your Creator all the glory this day. Give Him praise. Remember to stand fast and stand in your proper position before God and in front of the whole world with your crown and rod of iron as a king and queen of the kingdom of God. We'll see you tomorrow, 5 a.m. sharp. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.
Trying to hide the pain on your face. Times are getting harder. You're afraid and you pray. Just keep hoping, believing, hold on to your faith. It's alright. It's okay. And it's okay. Don't let your troubles get in your way. Don't let your troubles just believe. Just believe. Sky